I would like to announce that a quorum is present. The meeting is duly called, and a notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. The time is 6 p.m. The following board members are in attendance: Allison Lasan, Dr. Stacy Barker, Dr. Sheila Taylor, Catherine Sells, Michelle Akateb, and Jenny Prosnick. We will now convene into closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551, specifically 551.071, 072, 074, and 089. The time is still 6 p.m. We will now reconvene into open session. The time is 7:06 p.m. Please rise for the presentation of colors by the Hebron High School Junior ROTC cadets. Please remain standing as students from Etheridge Elementary lead us in our pledges.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
I want to recognize our junior ROTC cadets, Maddie Collins, Lawrence Kong, Iman Anwar, and Johnny Roy. They're led by their instructors, Chief Warrant Officer Max Velasquez and Chief Kevin Lewis. Huge congratulations to the cadets. They took first place at the Brain Brawl hosted at Lebanon High Trail School in Frisco. Next stop is the Area Manager State Championship this February at the Naval Air Station Joint Reserve Base in Fort Worth. Well done. We're so very proud of you. And from Etheridge Elementary, we have fifth grader Thomas Leal. So here's some fun facts about Thomas. Thomas has two brothers. He enjoys playing football, video games, and hanging out with friends. When he grows up, Thomas wants to play college football and then make it to the NFL. His favorite football team is the Dallas Cowboys, an eternal optimist. When asked about his favorite teacher, Mama said, Miss Weish, because she has taught me so much. She praises me when I do good and has taught me wonderful life lessons. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Can we recognize your great parents for being here with us? Are there any family members of the cadets that were here? Just wanted to make sure I didn't skip them out. In recognition of Veterans Day, which will be observed by schools across our district tomorrow, on behalf of the board, I want to express our heartfelt gratitude to the brave men and women who have served our nation with unwavering dedication and sacrifice. Their commitment to our country and the values they uphold as part of their military service have left an indelible mark on our community. They have not only defended our nation, but also continue to make a profound difference in the lives of our students, colleagues, and the entire LISD family. To our veteran employees, we salute you for the dedication, resilience, and leadership that you bring to our district every day. Your experiences and expertise has enriched our schools and inspired the next generation to become responsible citizens. I would ask for any veterans in the audience and our very own Board of Trustees member, Dr. Sheila Taylor, to stand so that we may recognize you in your service to our country. Thank you so much. In addition, we would like to read the names of our students who gave their lives in protection of our freedom. After the names are read, please join me in a moment of silence as we honor them.
Second Lieutenant Sam O. Painter, 1938 Lewisville High School graduate.
Private Isaac V. Johnson, Jr., 1942 Lewisville High School graduate.
First Lieutenant Barty Ray Brooks, 1948 Lewisville High School graduate.
First Lieutenant Wallace B. Travelstead, 1949 Lewisville High School graduate.
Lance Corporal James Edward Huckabee, 1965 Lewisville High School graduate.
Lance Corporal Albert G. Haddad, Jr., 1986 Lewisville High School graduate.
Major Matthew W. Worrell, 1990 Lewisville High School graduate.
Lance Corporal Jacob Raul Lugo, 2001 Marcus High School graduate.
Specialist Ryan Michael McCauley, 2002 Lewisville High School graduate.
Private Aaron Hudson, 2002 Marcus High School graduate.
Sergeant Enrique Mondragon, 2008 The Colony High School graduate.
Specialist Philip C.S. Schiller, 2010 The Colony High School graduate.
We will now have a moment of silence. Thank you. Welcome to all. The Lewisville ISD Board of Trustees meets monthly to receive reports from staff and take action on recommendations from the superintendent. The board receives the agenda and all supporting documentation 10 days in advance of these regular meetings, which allows us to ask and receive answers to many of our questions. The board also meets in regularly scheduled workshops and work sessions where staff discussions and presentations are given for many of the agenda items. This protocol means lengthy discussion or a litany of questions on every agenda item often is not necessary. And as a board, we should have appropriate knowledge and preparation for responses regarding the content of our meeting tonight. I'd like to note that the canvassing of the November 4th election results will take place at a special meeting on Monday, November 17th. This schedule ensures that we've received the official results from the Denton and Tarrant counties in accordance with standard election procedures. The community is invited to Ms. Lopez's swearing in at 6 p.m. right here in this boardroom next Monday. Dr. Taylor will now present this month's Recognize Someone.
Thank you, Madam President. A parent shared about Counselor Olson at Etheridge Elementary School. We would love to recognize Counselor Olson for the incredible support she provides to students and families at Etheridge. She is such a steady, caring presence, always ready with the right skills, guidance, and encouragement to help in any situation. We are so thankful for the way she supports our children and partners with families. Her role is truly essential, and we're grateful every day for the difference she makes in our school community. Community member Lewisville Fire Chief shared about Nurse Garcia at DeLay Middle School. Nurse Garcia handled a potential life-threatening call for service today with the utmost professionalism and calmness. Her treatment prior to our arrival turned a life-threatening medical emergency into a basic transport to the hospital for observation. Had her treatment been delayed, it could have been a much grimmer outcome. Strong work, Nurse Garcia.
Up next are our student and staff recognitions led by our communications team.
Flower Mound 9th grade campus geography teacher Tim Fales was recently named the Texas Association of School Administrators 2026 Texas Secondary Teacher of the Year. This honor comes after a year-long journey of thoughtful essays and in-depth interviews that highlighted Mr. Fales' teaching philosophy, purpose, and passion for education. After being named the Lewisville ISD Secondary Teacher of the Year, he advanced to the Region 11 Teacher of the Year program, representing LISD among 76 districts across a 10-county area. Then he was named Region 11 Secondary Teacher of the Year, placing him among the top 40 educators in the state. From that group, just 3 secondary finalists were selected and interviewed by a panel of judges made up of education, business, and community leaders from across the state. Congratulations, Mr. Fels. Lewisville ISD is so proud of you and your unwavering commitment to serving our students. The Flower Mound High School girls cross country team concluded an impressive season, bringing home the top spot at the district and regional championships to advance to the UIL 6A state championship meet, this time earning the team a silver medal to add to their already impressive trophy case with a combined low score of 41 points. Congratulations, Jags.
Oh, hello? Okay. Hello. I think it's still at the 5th grade height here. I'm a little taller than that. We have, thank you, my name is Andrew Cook. I'm the head cross-country coach at Flower Mound High School. Closest to me, we have Eliana Rivera, we have Allie Driscoll, Michaela Kutek, Addie Bennett, Kira Primer, Liana Cluley Garza, and Megan Schmidt. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you, girls. And the parents in the audience, if y'all please stand up so we recognize y'all as well.
The Marcus High School girls water polo team captured the state championship in their first ever appearance at the UIL 6A water polo tournament, edging out Brazoswood 14-13 in the championship match. Senior Courtney Smith was named MVP of the match, scoring 4 goals with 4 shots and 1 steal. Leading up to the state championship, Marcus secured a 12-10 victory over Foster in the semifinals. The team finished the season with an impressive 25-1 record and is ranked first in Texas and second nationally by Max Preps. Way to go, Marauders.
ladies.
The Hebron High School boys water polo team capped an impressive season by earning the silver medal at the UIL 6A State Water Polo Tournament. Ranked second in Texas and ninth nationally by Max Preps, the Hawks finished the season with a remarkable 31 wins. Congratulations, Hebron.
Hello, my name is Donzie Lilly. Take this out of here. I want to say thank you to the board for y'all's support through this season. Thank you to our administration, Dr. Bowden, Amanda Warnicki, and thank you to athletics and Coach Lyles. And thank you to all the parents that came and supported us along the way. My name is Donzie Lilly. This is my assistant coach, Sarah Carlisle, and we'll go water polo style down the roster with everyone here. So number 1, we have Daniel Luddick. 1A, Griffin Pinnerman. 2, Kobe Renfro. 3, Kane Macklin. 4, Cameron Caruso. 5, Braden Gilbo. 6, Levi Carter. 7, Dane Johnson. 8, James Stockton. 9, Avery Wynn. 10, Beckett Slavin. 12, Michael Cooley. 13, Ayan Patel. 14, Bogdan Slavu. 16, Kane Hamilton. And 17, Kit Tran. Thank you.
Gentlemen.
Good evening, everyone. We are honored to introduce an outstanding group of employees and recognize their dedicated service to our students, their colleagues, and the communities they serve. As you can see, Dr. Rapp and the board are coming down to the floor to help us congratulate some of our honorees who are excited to be here tonight. Together, this exceptional group has devoted nearly 3,000 years of service to Lewisville ISD. Their commitment to public education enriches lives and shapes futures, and for this, LISD is deeply grateful. First, we'd like to recognize our honorees who have served LISD for 25 years. If you can stand up. Okay, Chris Adams. Jim Baker. Sarah Bowman, Carrie Boyd, Michael Castillo, Michael Cole, Dulcie Coonrod, Holly Demond, Jenny Evans, Mary Beth Evans, Leah Fisher, Dr. Sarah Fitzhugh, Bergie Freeman, Lindsay Hurst, Michelle Jacobson, Tabitha Kirby, Carrie Kruger, Maureen Miller, Isaac Ordaz, Jennifer Owen, Allison Schwab, Kathleen Singh, Jeremy Sively, Will Skelton, Deborah Stevens, Richard Solstead, Kimberly Sullivan, Kathleen Tyler, Melanie Vincelette, Elizabeth Wade, Julia Walters, Carrie Wiggins, Okay, she's good. Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. We have our next group to recognize. Next, we'd like to recognize our 30-year of service honorees. Nancy Bolt, Melissa Carey, Sandra Elizalde, Pam Herman, Leanne Hewitt, Sherry McGuire, Victor Munoz, Charles Olinger, Christine Roundtree, Jerry Stopper, we have one more 30-year recipient who was already up front
here in line, and that is our very own Dr. Lori Rapp. With pride.
Thank you so much. On to our next wonderful group. We'd now like to recognize our 35 years of service honorees. And we have two lovely honorees tonight joining us. Dr. Kelly Hyunga and Kathleen Nutt. Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, we'd like to recognize our only honoree this school year who has served Lewisville ISD for an impressive 40 years. Melinda Proctor from LISD's Human Resources Department. Thank you for your extraordinary commitment to public education and to LISD. Thank you all so much for your years of service to the district. Next up, the superintendent update. Dr. Rapp.
All right, thank you, Madam President. So for this month, of course, we have big celebrations, and we will see them at a future board meeting coming up. But LISD is home to 3 of the top 6A bands in the state of Texas. Farmhound won first, Hebron won second, Marcus won fourth, and of course, we know that people are continuing on in Bands of America, but for the state competition, it doesn't get any more elite than the state of Texas UIL marching competition, and we're so proud of the band directors, the students, and of course our band families. We're very thankful for. So thank you so much for all your dedication, time, and effort. It was amazing. I just have to tell this quick little story. So when you make it into the finals at the state level, only 14 bands get to make it into the finals. So I have 3 bands in the finals of the top 14. No other district, none other, has 3 bands in the top 14. So they started, of course, they load them all onto onto the field in the most beautiful fashion that can only happen at a state marching contest. It's amazing. And then they started announcing 14 all the way down. So when it got to 10, we were still not announced. And then when it got to 5, we were still not announced. I was like, there's only 4 places left, and we are 3 of them. So it was amazing, just an amazing experience, but it doesn't happen without a whole lot of hard work and some very talented staff that lead those programs each and every day. And of course, as you all just celebrated here, we look forward to celebrating our veterans around the district tomorrow. We have numerous celebrations and recognition ceremonies going on around the district. I'm going to start my morning out at Hicks Elementary, so I will look forward to that. But I thank you to all of our campuses that work so hard to thank the service of our veterans around our community, and what a great learning experience for our students to get to be a part of that. We also found out that for the 2nd consecutive year, we've been named a CTE District of Distinction by the State Career and Technical Association of Texas. We're very proud of that work and always look forward to the work that happens every year, the certifications that are earned, the college entrance that is won because of the great programs that we have in CTE, both at our career centers and on our main campuses as well. And then, of course, each month I report to you about the connections that I'm working to build as part of the culture, communication, and connection that has been my emphasis since becoming superintendent. The past month, I've met with our teacher association reps. Of course, I've met with our brand ambassadors, which are staff that come to learn more about challenges facing our profession in public schools. I've had lunch with Lori so far this school year at Heritage, LHS, Hebron Valley, and Morningside. I've enjoyed visiting with all of the staff at all of those schools and spending time with them. And then I got up really early one morning and rode a bus with Benny Del Toro. Thank you to Benny for inviting me to ride along on his bus, and appreciate the work that our bus drivers across the district are doing also. In building connections with students, I meet regularly with students across all 5 feeder patterns. I've met with elementary and middle school student advisory. I've got one more feeder pattern to go. And then, of course, I see my high school student advisory each month. And so great feedback from students. We've been talking about not only their questions that they have about anything going on in the district, but next time our child nutrition team will be our featured guest as we continue to get feedback from our kids about our food in the cafeterias. I also meet with the community regularly. As everyone knows, we've had a couple of sessions of key communicators with this class this school year. We start a new class of key communicators every single year. So if you're a community member and you want to learn more about how to advocate for public schools or the issues that are facing public schools, please join our key communicator program. I was proud, along with many board members, to attend our PTA president and principal luncheon, and I'm so appreciative for the work of our PTAs. And then supper with the superintendent. I meet with parents whose oldest child is a first grader in our school district, and we talk about the opportunities that lay ahead for them, along with Lewisville ISD information about our district as well. And then I want to say thank you to our community. As I was out in schools a couple of Fridays ago, I think it was, many campuses had a read across their campuses. And as I'm in our schools, I get to see many of our community volunteers who are signing up to read to our kids. That means so much to them when you come to a classroom and read. Dr. Guy at Rockbrook, I had a different experience with them, a first for me, which I read to many classes online. I read to everybody? Many, yes. It was many classes online, and my focus, the book I chose to read everywhere I went, was about kindness is your superpower, and just how they can work not only to make our schools kind, but to make their communities kind. And Dr. Guy issued a challenge to the students at Rockbrook to be the kindest school in the school district with what they were hearing. So I really enjoyed that and appreciated Dr. Guy being on the screen as well. For my newsletters that I send out, we have well above above the industry click rate on the superintendent newsletters. In the parent and community newsletter, the most clicked links last month were academic calendar, middle school planning guide, and our high school planning guide. And then for staff, the most clicked links were employee perks, the kindness shirt orders, and school improvement plan information. If you have not been to a musical, I encourage you to go. These are the dates for all the musicals around the school district. Miss Taylor and I, Dr. Taylor and I, had a very great Friday night at Mamma Mia at Lewisville High School. Great production. The students just were amazing in that. The set is amazing for that as well. So here's all these dates. If you haven't had a chance to be at one of our high schools to see a musical, you've just got to go. It's going to be a great musical season in Lewisville ISD. We also have Adopt an Angel gift program that has opened. It's now open through December. We will serve over 3,500 students in our district this season thanks to the generosity of our community, that students will wake up on Christmas morning with presents to be able to open. And so we thank you to our community, but also say to our community, please help get involved and support our students in this way. And that's my rundown for this month.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rapp. Public comment is next on the agenda, and we had nobody sign up. So we will move on to our first set of action items this evening. To consider approval of the Mill Street Elementary turnaround plan. Dr. Rapp.
Madam President, members of the board, you've heard about the Mill Street Elementary turnaround plan. We had a public hearing last Monday, and then in your work session last month, we talked about the components of their plan. We've posted those details online as well. And I want to say thank you to Ms. Bailey and the staff at Mill Street. Ms. Bailey, of course, has been at all of the board meetings. She's here tonight as well if there are any other questions that we need to answer. But just thank you so much to the staff, as our shared goal this year is for Mill Street to achieve a C rating. And I appreciate the feedback that we've gotten from the community as a part of this process also.
Someone have a motion? Ms. Lasan.
I move that the board approve the Mill Street Elementary turnaround plan as provided by administration.
Is there a second? Ms. Alcatab. Is there any questions or discussion? I just want to say that once again, I'm very appreciative to Dr. Rapp and the team for coming up with a plan that will not only, I believe, serve the Lewisville feeder pattern, but just serve future students, and that we will be able to impact more students with pre-K. There is not a research thing out there that does not show that the earlier you can get a kid into our schools, the better that they do. And this is about setting kids up for success for the long term. This will not be a quick turnaround program. This is an investment, and this is an investment not only. This is an investment in students, and this is an investment in their future success. And I'm very grateful for the forward thinking by you, Dr. Rapp, and your team to bring this forward so that we can impact more students than we have been able to impact there. So with that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. The vote carries 6-0. Next is consider approval of the DeLay Middle School turnaround plan. Dr. Rapp.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, and I appreciate Mr. Gray, who I see out in the audience tonight, if we have any questions as well in the work of the DeLay staff. I also appreciate, too, that I see in the audience members of the campuses that will be receiving students from the Mill Street turnaround plan. I want to say thank you to our schools here tonight for that as well. The support of our communities for these schools is so critical. So thank you, Mr. Gray. Thank you for your leadership. I've enjoyed walking classrooms at DeLay Middle School. I look forward to being back, but I know you're working hard with the staff as you implement this turnaround plan that's before the board tonight. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Madam President.
Would someone like to make a motion? Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the board approve the DeLay Middle School turnaround plan as provided by administration.
Is there a second? Ms. Sells. Any discussion or comment? Mr. Gray, I just want to say I'm very impressed with the work that's happened so far and the amount of progress that you were able to share with this board just at our very last meeting. So with that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. The vote carries 6-0. Next is to consider approval of the Durham Middle School turnaround plan. Dr. Rapp.
Thank you, Madam President. I see Mr. Holt back there as well, so I want to say thank you for being here tonight in case, of course, there's any questions. Appreciate the work that's happening to support Durham also, and as I see the learning and teaching team as well, and I see Karen Seeley, and just know the work that learning and teaching is doing to support all of our schools that we've talked about both with turnaround plans and we'll talk about with targeted improvement plans. I'm thankful for their leadership in this process also. But Mr. Holt, I've enjoyed being at your campus as well. Look forward to being back to walk classrooms with you soon also, and appreciate the work that's going on. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Madam President.
Would someone like to make a motion? Dr. Taylor.
Madam President, I move that the board approve the Durham Middle School turnaround plan as provided by administration.
Is there a second? Ms. Sells? Any comments, questions? Once again, Mr. Holt, I would reiterate what I said to Mr. Gray. Impressed with the work that's happened so far. I look forward to more success at Durham. With that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Vote carries 6-0. Next is the public hearing on the Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas First report. We will now conduct a public hearing on the Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas. Mr. Ware.
All right, thank you. The School First rating is the state school accountability rating system on the financial side. It ensures that Texas schools are held accountable for the quality of their financial management practices, and it's designed to encourage Texas public schools to better manage their financial resources to provide for the maximum allocation in the classroom. School districts are required to have a public hearing, and that's what we're having tonight. So in the public, for the public hearing, we did publish a legal notice, October 24th through the 26th. And so within the ratings that we'll walk through, the first four indicators are what they call critical indicators, meaning that if the district failed on any of these indicators, they would fail their first rating. And then the remainder of the indicators we'll walk through, and you'll see that many of those are either pass-fail or you receive points. And so for this current year, which is the 2024-25 rating, which is based on our financial data for 2023-24, the district received an A rating, which is a superior achievement. The score that we received for this year was 98 out of 100. So as I mentioned, there's 21 indicators. Some are pass-fail, and then some are awarded points, and we'll walk through quickly each of those different indicators. So number one was the complete annual financial report submitted to TEA within 30 days of the January 28th deadline. And so for us, we submitted our financial report to TEA by December 17th, so we passed that indicator. Indicator number two was their unqualified opinion in the annual financial report. And so that would mean that our annual financial report, that there were no indications of financial mismanagement, material errors, or poor controls, what auditors would refer to as a clean opinion. And so we did receive that for that audit, so we passed that indicator. Indicator number three was the school district in compliance with the payment terms of all debt agreements at year end, and we did make all of our debt service payments in a timely manner. And I should have highlighted on each of the slides, you'll see the current score as well as the previous year's score. So we did pass that indicator. Indicator number four, did the district make timely payments to TRS, TWC, IRS, and other government agencies? And we did, so we passed that indicator. So we passed all four of the critical indicators. Indicator number five was the total net position in the governmental activities column in the statement of net positions greater than zero. Ours was $686 million, so we easily passed that indicator. Indicator number 6 was the average change in assigned and unassigned fund balance over 3 years, less than a 25% decrease. So this is making sure that districts haven't depleted their fund balance over the last 3 years. And so our decrease was 7.6%. So we passed this indicator. Indicator number 7 is looking at cash on hand and current investments in the general fund to make sure that they're sufficient to cover our operating expenditures. TEA would recommend that we would have at least 90 days of of cash on hand to meet our operating expenditures. And for this year, we had 126 days, so we received 10 out of 10 points. Number 8 was the measure of current assets to current liability ratio for the school district sufficient to cover short-term debt. And our ratio was 4.9, and so we had to exceed 3 points to receive 10, so we received all 10 points. And you'll see a history on this next slide of what our breakdown has been for that. It's actually gone up quite a bit in 2024-25, and that's mainly due to the bond sales that took place, and so we received those additional assets that increased that ratio. Indicator number 9 is looking at whether the school district's general fund revenues equal or exceed expenditures. And so if a district had a deficit situation for the year, then they would have to at least have 60 days of cash on hand. For the year that's being tested, we had more revenue than expenditures, so we passed this and received 10 points. Indicator 10 was not evaluated. And then indicator 11 is looking at the ratio of long-term liabilities to total assets for the school district. We need to have 0.6, anything less than 0.6 would get us 10 points. Our ratio was 0.6118. And you'll see that that's fluctuated over the years, and it really is dependent on our bond sales, whereas on the other indicator, it helped us to have bond sales here that's going to increase our liability, and so it's going to change that a little bit to drop us down to 8 out of 10 points. Indicator number 12 is looking at future debt requirements and the district's assessed property value, because our property value helps generate the taxes that are collected to help pay off our debt. And so we had a ratio of 2.5, which received 10 out of 10 points. Number 13, they look at the school district's administrative cost ratio. And so for a district that has more than 10,000 ADA that we do, TEA has recommended that our administrative cost ratio should be less than 8.55%. For that year, you'll see that our ratio was actually just under 6.2%. So we were well under what TEA would recommend for an administrative cost ratio. So for this indicator, we received all 10 points. Indicator number 14, did the school district not have a 15% decline in the student to staff ratio over 3 years? This is taking a look at making sure that when you do have a decline in enrollment that your staffing aligns with that, and so you should see a staffing decrease as well. And so they're looking 15% or less. Our ratio was 2.6%, so we were very close in line with our enrollment and our staffing, and so we received all 10 points. Indicator number 15 looks at the district's ADA within the allotted range of the school district's pupil projection that's submitted to TEA. So every 2 years we have to submit what we think our ADA is going to be, and they want to make sure that it's as close as or as accurate as possible, because currently that's how they've funded us throughout the years based on these projections, and then they'll settle up at the end of the year when they have our actual numbers. But so for us, our difference was 1.45%, and anything better than 7% difference receives all 5 points. Indicator number 6 takes a look at our PEMS data and compares it to our annual financial report to make sure that those are in close comparison. They would allow any variance less than 3% of expenditures by function. The sum of our differences for that year was $644. So, I mean, it was very, very accurate PEMS data that was submitted. So we passed that indicator. Number 17 was the external independent audit report, free of any instances of material weaknesses in internal controls, and ours was. We passed that indicator. Indicator number 18, did the annual financial report, was it free of any instances of material noncompliance for grants, contracts, and laws related to local, state, or federal funds? And ours was free of that, so we received all 10 points. Number 19, did we post the required financial information on its website? We did. We have quite a bit of financial information that's on the website, and so we receive all 5 points for that indicator. Indicator number 20 was the school district administration and school board members. Did they discuss any changes and or impact to local, state, and federal funding at a board meeting within 120 days before the district adopted its budget? It's amazing to think that there'd be any district that doesn't do this, because we do this quite often. So we easily pass that indicator. Number 21, in the final indicator, did the district receive an adjusted repayment schedule for more than one fiscal year for an overallocation of the FSP funds because of financial hardship? We did not, so we passed that indicator. So that completes all of the indicators. So as part of this, we're also required to have some disclosures included on our first report. And so the first disclosure is the superintendent's current employment contract, which we have a link in the report. The second one captures any reimbursements received by the superintendent and board members, which is mainly for training opportunities. And so this is not only reimbursements, but it could be payments made on behalf. So if there's a registration fee that the district paid on behalf, then that would be captured on this disclosure. Disclosure number 3, was there any outside compensation or fees received by the superintendent for professional consulting or other personal services? There were none. Number 4, any gifts received with an economic value greater than $250 by the superintendent or board members? And there were none. And then the final disclosure, were there any business transactions between the school district and board members? Which there were none. So this that completes the public or the presentation for the first report, and this first report will be posted on the district's website, as we have many. I think we have about 8 years out there currently.
Thank you, Mr. Ware. The public hearing on the financial integrity rating system of Texas is now open. If there are any persons present who would like to speak to this topic, please come forward at this time. Since there are no speakers, I declare this public hearing closed. Next is consent items. Are there any items to be pulled, or would someone like to make a motion? Ms. Alcatab.
I move that the board approve the consent agenda items as recommended by administration.
Is there a second? Dr. Taylor? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Vote carries 6-0. Next up are information items. First up is the monthly technology report. Dr. Gary Connie.
All right. Good evening, President Prosnick, Dr. Rapp, and Board of Trustees. The monthly technology report has been included in your board packet for tonight. It covers a period of September 1st, 2025 through September 30th, 2025. On page 1, you see our 2017 technology program bonds are steady at $96.3 million spent, with a remaining $5.25 million remaining, and this is consistent with what we've seen in recent months. No changes. For I-fees, with the start of the new fiscal year effective September 1st, revenue and expenses have reset, with the revenues at $588,000. Expenses for September came in at $57,000, leaving a balance of $3.33 million in the I-fee fund. Regarding the average age of devices for pre-K through third grade, this increased by 1 month now, and so we're at 1 year and 5 months from last month's reporting. And the average age of devices for grades 4 through 12 decreased by 1 month to 1 year and 8 months, and that's still kind of the consequences of us doing the device refresh for 4th grade and for 9th grade. And finally, for staff devices, the average age has increased to 1 year and 10 months. On page 2 of the document, our opt-in percentage is at 98.96% for students in grades 4 through 12. And finally, for the month of September, we see average monthly bandwidth per student trending downward but still above prior years. And average daily bandwidth per student while on campus continues to be consistent with the data for devices on campus. I would be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Are there any comments or questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is the student learning update. Dr. Fitzhugh.
Hey, good evening. Tonight we have the first of 3 student learning updates for this school year. And so just an overview, tonight we're going to talk about the board goal for early childhood literacy, for math, and then the CCMR goal as well. So just a little bit of new background information. This is a kind of an updated slide from what we normally use because we have transitioned to using a new reading and math assessment for 3rd grade. The board, we discussed this, and the board approved the goals at the October meeting. But one of the things as we talk through this data that's important to note is that iReady, the instrument we're now using, measures data a little bit differently than our previous assessment. So previously we used an assessment instrument that was norm referenced, and so it kind of looked at students where they were at the specific time of year. iReady, the way that we're using is as a criterion reference, so it's holding students accountable for the end of year target. So as we talk through data, it's just an adjustment and something new that we're looking at. All of our campuses have goals also. Those have been shared with you. And then CCMR goals have also been included. So we're going to start off with reading. So what you can see here for our beginning of year data is that at the beginning of year in September, 54.4% of our students were already meeting that end of year on grade level reading target in 3rd grade reading. Okay, this does not include IEP data in it. We do use that at the end of year, and so we kind of see a little bump at that point. We will see this number grow when we come back at middle of year and when we come back at the end of year. There are some different performance gaps there. We have goals for each student group, and so we are working with those student groups, and we will see growth through over time with them. Now, this is another view that iReady allows us, and it's more of a norm reference view that we're used to. And what it kind of shows us is that 71% of our students are where we would expect them to be right now. Another 15% are a little bit lower than expected, and then we have 14% that are at risk. So we do have ways of looking at the data, but when we present data to you for campuses, we're using that criterion reference view. So when we look at campuses meeting their targets, we don't have any campuses meeting their end-of-year target right now for all of their students. We have some students at the campuses meeting, but in terms of the goal, remember, campuses had to set their lowest they could set their target was 65% of their students. So we are still working towards that at all of our campuses, and that's perfectly appropriate for September when we took this measurement. We don't have any within 10%, but then we do have 5 that are within 10 to 20% of their target, 15 that are 20 to 30, and then 14 that have a little bit further to go. Again, we do see an additional boost when we pull IEP data in as well. Now, a new piece to this presentation is that the legislature passed some laws that require us to report out on our K through 2, just how that group is progressing as well. And so what you will see at kindergarten, at the beginning of year, 38% of our kindergartners were already meeting the end of year target. Okay, now iReady also has a measure called Ready to Learn, and that means that they are where you would expect them to be at the beginning of the school year for that school year. It doesn't mean that all students are ready to learn. It just means those are right there where you would expect them to be beginning of year. So at kinder, you cannot be not ready to learn. There's not a whole lot of content you're supposed to come to kinder already knowing. So that adds up to 100%. So that's where that data is right there. First grade, 28% of our students were already at their end of year goal, like they're reading where you would expect an end of year first grader to read. 65% of the students are ready to learn, and we think that we will see that number move. We should, based on what we've been trained on by iReady, we should see that start moving into the on grade level. There is a small percentage, I think it's 7%, if I do my math right, that are a little bit further behind where you would expect them to be. That's the first group. They're more than a year behind. They're still in that early kinder range, and so we have some more gaps to cover. Second grade, you have 36% of your students that are already meeting the end of year target for reading, 42% are ready to learn, and by second grade, we're starting to see some more performance gaps emerge because they've had 2 years of instruction. So a few more of our students are more than a year behind, and so how do we close those gaps? Again, IEP data is not taken into account with this, so some of these pieces will be taken care of because students are making the appropriate progress according to their IEP. Okay, with math. So math right now is coming in, 23.9% of our students are meeting the end-of-year target. That is lower than reading. That does not shock me in any way, shape, or form, because once you're a reader, it's about your vocabulary and your ability to comprehend, and those are kind of more holistic, whereas math, most kids don't just know how to round to the hundreds innately. Like you don't, sometimes that takes a little bit more multiplication. There's just a little more targeted instruction to be able to generalize and roll up. So I think we will start to see that move. It's middle of year as we would expect. Here's that norm view also that comes with math, and you can see 73% of students are where we'd expect them to be for beginning of year. Again, with math, it's very similar to reading. We don't have any campuses meeting their end of year target. That's because our campuses set targets for end of year goals, and that's where we would expect. We are working with the campuses to make sure that they are growing. There's a lot of support being provided, but you kind of have that same, distribution there. For kindergarten through second grade with Math iReady, you have 21% of your kindergartners already at their end of year. You have 79% that are ready to learn. For first grade, we have 13% that are already at the end of year, and then 71% ready to learn. And then second grade, it's 18% and 53%. Again, math numbers always beginning of year come in a little lower than reading. It's just not as generalizable of a skill.
Okay, so we like to share with you a learning and teaching support update every time we come with these reports. And so one of the things that we introduced to you last year was an adjustment in the learning facilitator ability to really target in on some campuses with more days and more support. So you can see kind of a sample of that schedule there. And last year we were able to log almost 2,000 coaching sessions, this year coaching sessions, and so that is up from 1,548 sessions last year. Those campuses that are the 12 at the top, they receive 4 days out of every 4 weeks with a math and science learning facilitator, and then 4 days out of every 4 weeks with a language arts social studies facilitator. And then you can see how we have staggered that down with 3 particular campuses who get 3 days of that cadence, 4 campuses that have 2 days, and then we have 15 other campuses where we have 1 day out of every 4 weeks where a facilitator is on site coaching with math and science or language arts and social studies. With the professional learning this year, there's been a focus for us on the iReady implementation and the instruction. Karen Spalding and I see Amy Dorman in the audience as well. So a lot of our time has been spent on making sure that our teachers are trained and they are able to implement the personalized pathways as a supplemental intervention that students can utilize through the week. So some of that information has translated into students using an average time on task of 1 hour and 53 minutes in math, and a pass rate of 90% as they're working through those lessons in their pathways. And then in reading, there have been 2 hours and 5 minutes per week on average and a pass rate of 80%. And so that's something a lot of the principals are tracking with their teachers to make sure that they are getting on, not too often, but often enough that it's going to make a difference, and that is the data that iReady has provided us as what should be the time on task in order to see progress through those pathways. We have been also conducting walkthroughs to look for the implementation of the high-yield strategies at campuses, and then the One Vision instructional framework has been the priority training as well, because that really supports high-yield instructional best practices, and that training has occurred for all of our teachers across the district. The next piece was related to trend, and Kelly Roden has been leading some of that work, so she wanted to share some of that information tonight.
All right, good evening, Board. I get the opportunity to talk to you about the trend walkthrough and how we've updated to make sure that we are in alignment with, obviously, the work they're doing in learning and teaching with the One Vision framework. Really, the purpose of the LISD trend walkthrough is to really look at patterns and trends across campus over time in order to help guide our support with instructional practices with our staff, because just like we want our students to learn and grow, we also want our staff to learn and grow. So how can we be more intentional with our professional learning to help support them so we impact students student achievement. So with that being said, last year we went back and we reviewed the trend walkthrough form because it had been several years since we had updated it. We gathered a group of principals and members from learning and teaching to come together and really give input on how the current trend form was working for them. Was it a tool that was helping them get the information they needed so that they could analyze that data to really look at how they can best support their teachers? And so everyone was able to give input, and then we were able to make those adjustments. Then the principals were charged with piloting that new form, go out, actually utilize the tool as they're walking classrooms and seeing the instructional practices happening and making sure that it was in alignment with the trend walkthrough form. When we made the updates and changes to the trend walk form, we made sure it was in alignment with the One Vision framework so that each of those pieces would be identified within the trend walkthrough form. So after they went and piloted it, tried it out at all campus levels, we came back again. We got feedback and input from them on after they had put it in practice, what adjustments they needed to see or what other things they needed added to it to make sure that it was a tool that they were using and that it was useful. Because we all know we can have lots of data, but if we don't do anything with the data, it doesn't change practice. And that's ultimately our goal, right? And so we came back, and then over the summer, I had the ability to train all administrators at our leadership conference at Inspire. Not only did we train on the trend walkthrough form, we also trained like how do we utilize that data piece with our staff, but also with our administrative team to make it impactful so that we can help support change on campus to support student growth. So Sarah's going to change the slide for me here. Here's just a snapshot of what the trend form looks like. You'll notice there are red stars on some of them. Those are required questions that we want answers for. There are some that are not required because, for example, one of the questions on the trend form is when you ask a student, what are they learning? Well, sometimes it's not appropriate for us to interrupt their instructional practice right at that time. So we don't do that. What I think is really beneficial about this, especially with your leadership team, is you're able to collaborate and calibrate on what you're seeing in the classroom to have those conversations, because as you know, learning when you're going in classrooms, that's what you see, where you see what your teachers are needing, right? That's how I'm going to plan my professional learning and really see how I can help support my teachers. But I'm also seeing trends over time. So just like any trend, like if I don't see a small group instruction in a second grade classroom one day, instruction ebbs and flows, right? But if I never ever see small group instruction, well, that's a bigger concern that I have. And does my staff need a conversation about what expectations I have? What does small group learning look like to impact student success? There are a lot of different things that we can attack it. This year, too, this week, we'll be working with assistant principals in APU for us to do an intentional PLC over the trend walkthrough form. So we're going to take a step back, look at our trends over the campus, and really look at what the data is telling us about student engagement, about the teacher instructional practices that they're doing, and how that's moving their students forward. So I'm really excited about that learning this week. So with that being said, the other benefit of this document is while we do have a set questions that everybody has to utilize so we can really calibrate across campuses, each campus every year has the ability to submit additional questions that are targeting their specific goals that they are working on their campus. So for an example, when I was a principal, one of my targeted questions really focused on the use of academic vocabulary in their classrooms because I was collecting data and then I brought it back to the staff to reflect on teaching practices, and then I looked at it to use how can I provide support and learning for those pieces. So, and they change those every year, or it might be something they keep depending on what their campus goals are. So the other good thing to know is while administrators can take trend form, instructional coaches can take trend forms. They can even train their teachers in taking trend data too, so they can go into other classrooms and look at what good instruction looks like besides their classroom, because sometimes it's good to get out and see other people teach, right? So last year we were hitting 16,347 trend forms across the district. Right now we're sitting at 5,813 campus trend walks, and I anticipate that'll be much larger by the end of the year.
Okay, and now we're going to finish up our third area with the CCMR data. So here's where we currently are, and I put some historical just so you could see when we kind of started this conversation, our numbers were a little lower. We were at 67% as a district. We've risen our low number right now is sitting at 72% with the class of 2025. We have all this year for more data to come in. The state gathers it. So we have seen a lot of growth. You're going to hear some more about it from campuses tonight. It has been a collective effort with a lot of support from the board for us to show this growth. And all the people are sitting out there. I don't want to leave anyone's name out, but from CTE to secondary to, I mean, it has been a whole group effort to have these numbers moving, and we're seeing them go in a direction we want to. We still have some pieces pieces we're working on, but we are definitely headed in the right direction. When you look at the class of 2026, which won't be used until 2027 accountability, you can see that 87% of our seniors have already engaged in some form of CCMR activity. That's up a lot from where it used to be. 46% of our students are already meeting it. We still have some gaps we're working on closing in terms of students meeting it. The good news is we now have students who have engaged, and we know what the next step is to get them to meet that goal. And so we've been tracking it much closer. When you look at local accountability in our readiness dashboard, that takes into account GPA, discipline, all the different things, you can see 96% of our seniors are locally ready using a more varied set of data, 94% of our juniors, and then 92% of our sophomores. So we really are working to get our kids. Freshmen, we just don't have enough data right now, so that'll come at a later date. When it comes to updates for 2025, just a reminder that our goal is about getting more kids engaged, and so that's what we're focusing on. For fall CCMR, we have already met with all of the high school campus principals to talk about what their data is looking like, how they've grown over time, what their upcoming classes look like. We gave them lists of students and what we're showing. The CTE team looked up every student that has any type of CTE and said to help campuses schedule kids to make sure they're completing that pathway. Lots of work has happened. TSI testing as a part of course completion is currently going on. We're also including it with college prep math. Career exploration electives. We've updated PGP planning. We are very aware that there is no plan for college prep math to move forward, starting with that class of 2027. We are going to continue to offer that course and also offering the TSI as part of it. We're continuing to watch what TEA approves to see if there's an avenue that opens for that. But that's one of the hardest things with CCMR is that the state changes the definition and kids are already engaged in a path when they change it. So we're keeping an eye on that. College prep English is still an opportunity. Things that we are exploring upcoming for 26-27 is how can we increase participation in English dual credit? Are there dual credit CTE options? Because if we can get 9 hours of dual credit CTE, that CTE certification isn't necessarily a hindrance. So there's an option. Exploring AP course expansion and just other dual credit courses. And then CTE, IBC changes and program changes that are happening. Our work, TEA really has done a lot of big changes with that. And so figuring out how that impacts that class of 2027 and forward is what we're watching. Future updates will be back in March with more information, and then in June with our end-of-year data. And so with that, are there any questions?
Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm so excited. I'm like jumping in my chair over here over some of the things that I'm hearing right now, which just is thrilling. But let me back up. Okay. I do have a couple of questions, but I also have a couple of comments, per usual. Welcome to my world. Okay. First of all, I really appreciate the shift to iReady. I prefer a criterion reference test because we have criteria referenced curriculum. We are measured by the TEKS, which are criterion. So for anybody out there that's like, criterion versus norm, like we have criterion, they're the TEKS. So it's really helpful to be able to see, beginning of the year, of course they're not going to be there yet, they haven't been taught the TEKS. But as we progress through the year, we should see that improve as those TEKS get taught. I also, however, do appreciate the normed view for a couple of reasons. One, we can kind of see where we are. We can tier some students and say, where are some students that are particularly at risk. But also because, if you've been paying attention, we have House Bill 8 that was passed in special session that will create a through-line assessment that is norm referenced instead of criterion referenced. Okay, so I'll be interested to see how all of that plays out, but it's nice to have the balance of both of those to be able to see, A, where are we in accordance to those criterion, but also where are we based on the school year. Ms. Spalding, you and I talked maybe last year, and I mentioned from up here, you don't have to get to the podium, I'm just referencing a conversation we had, because I was very concerned about the coaching model, because I'm a huge Atul Gawande fan, right? Everyone needs a coach. And so I wrote that down as I got to that slide. I'm going to bring it up here again. And then you started talking about the trend walkthroughs. Because if we talked, Ms. Spalding, about building up the administrators on those campuses to be able to provide that support when we don't have the ability to have our district leaders. So then you started talking about the trend walkthroughs. And I'm like wiggling in my chair. Because to me, that's the lever that allows us to develop our administrators into instructional leaders, to be able to calibrate and collaborate, and the collaboration between professional learning and learning and teaching, to be able to make that such a useful tool is so exciting. A couple of clarifying questions. Yes.
Oh, I get to come up to that.
You get to come up, Mr.
Okay, only if I get 2 claps, like the polo team. Thank you.
Now you have to jump in the pool.
Okay, I'm there. All right, I'm ready.
So the number of walkthroughs, the impressive number of walkthroughs, is that happening on every campus at every level?
The walkthroughs? Yes. Their chiefs work with the administrators on how many they expect them to have per semester. So absolutely, they are happening on all campuses across the district. Yes.
Oh, wonderful. And do you, in professional learning, roll that up into district trends to help you prepare professional learning at a district-wide scope?
Yes, actually, we took some of that data that we took in on our assistant principal university this week. We're going to be talking about student engagement and how we can take just like when we see trends and walkthroughs like that level 1 learning, that basic knowledge, rights, and skills, how we can increase that rigor by just shifting the way we approach the learning and connect it with students. So I'm really actually excited. This is my favorite probably learning session this year that we're doing, but really taking that data and walking campuses this year with leaders and APs a lot more has really helped shift in my mind the learning that they need in order to continue to be instructional leaders on their campus. And that's really kind of been our focus with assistant principals this year.
It is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I'm so excited to see where this goes. So thank you very, very much for all of that work. I think it's super, super powerful and meaningful work that'll create dividends long, long into the future. So thank you for that. One last little comment about CCMR. This was my thing that made me want to get on the board. I've been talking CCMR for years. There has been so much growth. Again, I'm like giddy over here. Jenny's laughing at me because I'm visibly giddy about how much growth we have made in CCMR over the last few years. And I agree with you. Shout out to all of the teams, our campus administrators, our counselors, our CTE teams, our tech centers, our learning and teaching team. Everybody has really been collaborating and working together to make sure that every student finds their path and is ready for whatever comes next for them. And that is really powerful. And to see it play out in the numbers as well is really encouraging to me. And I will tell you, I know it is not easy tracking all of the changes that TEA has made, but I will tell you, I've had multiple conversations with people in different departments, and you're all keeping an eye on it and trying to make sure. We had a conversation at church yesterday, Ms. Wine and I did, which you shouldn't talk shop at church, but it happens. And we were talking about it, about some of the things that the district is trying to make sure that we stay on top of this. I'm incredibly excited, incredibly proud of the work that's happening around this. And so, okay, I'm done. Thank you, Madam President.
I look forward to seeing how excited you are at mid-year. Ms. Sells.
I just have a couple of things. Do we have a breakdown of the trend walkthroughs by area, by campuses?
Yeah, I can run that data for you. Yeah, we can break it down that way.
I would just love to see that.
Sure.
And then, Dr. Fitch, you remind me again, how successful are students who are taking this test that do not, are not quite successful in this test but remain in LISD for the course of their education? Do we show great growth and
So because we're with the new assessment, I don't have longitudinal
Don't have
data
any
of
of
that
that.
nature right now. For our old instrument,
Yes.
we did have some data that showed the longer you were with us, the better you performed on the assessment. I have been asked, and we'll try to pull some data that looks to see, are the students just at beginning of year scoring better that have been with us, that
Right.
compared to those that were not? But I just
Exactly
don't
where I was
have any
going.
with this instrument
Okay,
specifically.
yeah, because I think it would be great for this board to at least have the information of those first-timers to LISD on where they are falling within these assessments. After 10 years on the board, it shows us a lot, even though we are kind of dealing with information from the old assessment. I think that the trend will probably be the same, and I would just like to see those kind of numbers. You referenced moving the seniors from, or moving students from engaged to meeting that TEA criteria and the next steps. Can you just give a couple of blurbs on those next steps?
It really can depend on which, because there are different ways in which
Right.
you get the CCMR indicator. So it could be that, as Dr. Petrina and her team worked with Mr. Baker and noticed that a student had 2 courses, so let's get them a completer and then an IBC that's aligned to that. That could be a situation. We could have a student who's taken a dual credit with requiring 9 hours, so they've engaged in the first 6. So how do we get them the next course? So it depends, because the variety of variables are there, which is why it takes so many people to track different data points. But once we put it together in a nice spreadsheet, whether it be AP course, TSI, et cetera, then it helps the counselors and the campuses to be able to identify the next steps for those students in particular.
And thank you for explaining that. I wanted to make sure that people understood that this criteria set forth for us by TEA is not something that one person in an office just can work through. And so wanted to make that. I also wanted to commend my fellow board members for making decisions that are opening up more opportunities for those who may have not felt like there was a clear pathway for them into a career that and even college ready, but more importantly, I think the career, because I think that that's where some students would leave high school and not really know what they were going to be doing. And if anybody ever questioned the intention of this board in this district, I would highly encourage them to visit one of our tech centers on an open house night and have a conversation with a student who maybe didn't have an opportunity, or better yet, find a parent who is there that night and ask them what that program has done for their family. And I will tell you, I went out to my car and I had tears because of what, were you with me? With what a parent, a mom had shared, a single mom who had 3 sons and middle brother and baby brother following big brother in a career path, that she was very clear big brother was already making more money than she had ever made per year in her life. And so I just wanted to make that clear. And those are my only comments and questions. Thank you.
Dr. Taylor?
Just piggybacking on what my colleague said about the tech centers, I just feel like those are just the crown jewels of our district and what we do really, really well. I just want to say I'm looking forward to the increases, of course, across the cohorts, especially the ones that I made notes of, African American students, economically disadvantaged, emerging bilinguals. I will say that if anybody had questions about the effect of poverty on education, look at the reports and look in that column, and that pretty much tells you everything you need to know about the scores. I did have a question that when you had mentioned there were gaps to cover, I wanted to know some of the interventions, but I think that was covered later in the report, but just mentioning it because I took notes. Is there any correlation between the accountability scores and maybe like an iReady type score? I know it's new.
So the iReady does have some correlates that if students make such certain amounts of progress within their pathways, that the reports we get by the end of the year, there are correlations between that and the success on
How well
START.
they do on this, okay, on the accountability test. And then my other question was, how do you measure if the interventions are working? I wanted to know if we would have a regular report if there's something that happens sort of in the middle where you don't figure out that you've not done well at the end. But I think you answered that as well. Is that the lesson planning and the testing around that?
There's actually several data points that teachers are learning and principals are learning as we go. And so even though we have assessments at beginning, middle, and end within iReady, there are also on-demand assessments, there are pathways, and all of that is trackable by each teacher.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question, back to the poverty issue. This might be for you, Dr. Rapp. What number are we at when we're thinking percentages, the percentage of the district that's at the poverty level, and how does that compare in 2025? And you can do this later, of course, versus maybe a 2019 or 2018.
Yeah, so as of last year, we were at about 36% poverty. We thought we were headed quickly towards 40% as a district, but given the struggle, and I've shared that we have with students, with families filling out the free and reduced lunch form, that is going to impact that percentage some. But prior to COVID, we were closer to 20% economically disadvantaged, and so it has changed fast on us when you consider that that's just barely over 5 years ago. You know, one of the things I wanted also to commend this board for as we talk about CCMR is y'all have been, which I appreciate, very supportive of both interventions that help increase our rating in the state version of CCMR, while yet still understanding we don't want to let go of what makes us us, which is the ability for kids to explore in CTE, because the state system does not support that. And supper with the superintendent the other night, one of the things I said is actually, and I've told this story about LHS as I see Mr. Baker sitting out there, I've told it all over the community, that LHS has a graduation rate of 96%. In the state accountability system, that scales to an 80%. Why does the state accountability system math take a 96% graduation rate and drop it to an 80%, right?
That's norm referenced, just so we're going back to my conversation about norm reference.
It makes no sense, right, to do that to a graduation rate. Could it be that a D for a campus actually means that rather than forcing your kid to finish a pathway in CTE that they don't want to finish and risk them dropping out of school, could it be that Lewisville High School is doing exactly what's right by kids because we're not playing the game of the state accountability system, so our graduation rate is actually higher because we don't force kids to finish a pathway they're not interested in? And the looks on parents' faces when I said it that way, we're like, well, why wouldn't you want your kid to be at a school and in a district where they aren't letting the state ratings drive the conversation, but you're letting the needs of the students drive the conversation? So I appreciate the board that I believe we've had a very measured response to increasing our state CCMR, but keeping a close eye on that graduation rate and not doing things that would lower that graduation rate because kids find themselves locked into paths they don't believe in. So,
Ms. Salketed?
Most of my questions and comments have already been asked by my colleagues, a lot around the trend walkthroughs and all of that information. And so thank you for answering those questions that are centered around that, because I do think that those are very valuable, important for everyone. And I would love to see the data in that feeder pattern as well, just to kind of see those trends and see how it kind of levels out. The other thing that you mentioned and I really want to hone in on is everybody is involved looking at every student. I think that is a key. I think the idea that we are looking at every student, where they stand, where they are, where they need to go, looking at what they're going to do to be successful and graduate. Yes, we need to look at, do they have the 6 out of the 9 hours? How do we get them those last 3? But at the same time, what is this student's path? that we are choosing for them. And I think that that is key, and it takes a village, it takes an LISD to do that, because it is very important for us to make sure that we are meeting the needs of every single student in our district. And you guys are doing that. And so I really, really appreciate it, because I know it's very time consuming and it's hard and going through and looking at it, but it's a very important data mark for us to look at for our students. And so I really want to commend you for that, because I think that that is really important. And then the only other thing I wanted to highlight is our tech centers are not the only ones that offer CCMR. We have them on our campuses, starting in middle school. And so if you have a child, if you have a student who is in there thinking, I can't give up 2 credit hours, I can't adjust my schedule, I can't do VLA, we have them. And so I think it's really important for our parents to understand we have these abilities for you to explore, to get the ideas starting early, so that you can kind of figure it out. And I think that that's one of the things, we're bringing in our middle school students to our career centers, but we're also needing to make sure that we're meeting them in the middle and letting them know it's available right here on your campus. And so I really wanted to make sure to highlight that. Thank you for all of the great work you guys are doing. I'm excited. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm going to give Karen Spalding an opportunity, because she has almost leapt out of her seat 3 times. Because I'd like for you to talk about, I'm very excited about iReady. And when I've walked campuses and I've talked to teachers, they are really excited about iReady. So could you talk about the intentionality of when a student takes an assessment? I'm going to use non-teacher terms. What they miss, what they get, and how it assesses that for the next time that they take the assessment.
Absolutely. So the diagnostic assessment is adaptive, and when a student sits down to take this test, no other student will end up taking the exact same test as any other, because it's going to analyze every single question they get right, every single question they get wrong, and even in some cases the type of error that they make, and begin to adjust to find exactly their sweet spot in their learning. This assessment, because it is so such a deep dive into what a student knows and does not yet know, takes about 45 minutes per average. So it is a deep look. As a result of that, students, we recommend to our teachers that they give it in chunks so that fatigue is not an issue. So with our very young learners especially, we might just do 10 minutes and then pause it, and then on another day come back and get back into it. We don't want fatigue to be keeping us from getting good data. So as we take this deep dive into their learning, teachers get a very clear report that includes exactly which TEKS all the way back to kindergarten for a 5th grader, if we need to look that far, that our students know and do not yet know. So we get a lot of really deep information about our children. As a result of that, it can also not only create a pathway for students to do some work on their own, but also provide our teachers some very explicit lessons to help fill gaps if any of those TEKS that they've met are from a previous grade level. So one of the things that you saw in our report was this idea of ready to learn. If we gave the beginning of the year assessment this year in the 3rd week of school, the window went from the last 2 weeks in September to, or the last 2 weeks in August to the first weeks of September. That's earlier than we've ever assessed before, so that we could really see what students walked in the door with. I'll just tell one funny story and then I'll keep it brief, but a 1st grade teacher that was just learning about her assessment data came up to me and said, Karen, I'm really worried because all of my class is a whole grade level behind. And I said, no, that just means that they learned what they needed to in kindergarten. They're ready for you now. She said, oh, good. It was like a whole new lease on life, right? So I think that as our teachers better understand that data, they know exactly where to dip in with their students. So we can expect in the middle of the year for them to take another adaptive assessment and get another new list of needs, and we'll be able to see how far they have grown, and we'll be able to use that as a prediction for STAR as well.
I just think it's a really good tool for finding even some of those, what I call like light around the door cracks, learning gaps. I think that the larger gaps are a lot easier to identify. I think some of those, light around the door ones are harder. And I think this is a tool that we're using now that will hopefully be able for us to find that 5th grader who just missed that day in kindergarten on a TEK, and we'll be able to fill that gap for them. So thank you so much for the work. Oh, Dr. Barker has more.
You just made me think of a question. It's not really a question, I guess. I'd be really interested if there is a similar tool that we could utilize at the middle school level. I worry about our middle school understanding of exactly where students are. So I agree, this is a fabulous tool. And so that's just a plug for us to find something akin to it for middle school.
We can have this conversation sometime, but I don't want to let it go without saying that we do have MindPlay as an assessment in middle school. We just aren't required to report it out to you, but we do have campuses that use that regularly in order to track their progress of their students.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate all the work. All right. With that, we will move on to discussion items. Q3 demographic update. Mr. Kaj.
Thank you, President Prosnick, board members, Dr. Rapp. As Rocky Gardner makes his way up here, I just want to start out by thanking him for the relationship working with us, rain or shine, day or night. He's quick to answer questions to help us make decisions in the district. And before I turn it over to him, Q3, as you saw in the report, it's now going to be the fall report. Still going to get 4 quarterly reports, but they're changing names from the Q3 to fall report. Q4 is going to be the winter report. Q1 is the mobility report, and then Q2 in August is a housing report. We still get 4. They're just called different things. So, Rocky, I'll let you take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kosh. President Prosnick, members of the board, Dr. Raff, it's great to be back in Lewisville. It's kind of like being home for me a little bit. Actually, my daughter just moved to the district, so if I'm lucky, maybe I'll have a grandbaby here one day. All right? Got to get, so whatever it takes. Yeah, so I feel like I'm glad that was such a positive presentation, and then I have to follow that, and I'm going to try and bring as much positivity as I can. But the housing market in Lewisville is dwindling. I mean, that's the bottom line. We were doing over 1,000 homes, just 5 years ago. Now we're looking at maybe closing 150 homes next year. Even though we have that out there, you can see the starts now dropped to 32, 30, 25. So our start rate is what's going to be next year's closing rate. This year, you're going to close about 225 homes, probably 250 at the end of the year. But that's only because we've got the inventory to do that. And you can see here the inventory numbers there. So we are seeing a shift, and we're seeing shifts in many ways. I'm going to talk through several of them tonight. The housing shift is one challenge. So not only are we seeing less homes being built, they're not building them as quickly. You can see there, we still got about 1,200 futures. We've got 2,000 homes that will be built. A lot of that product is a kind of a dense, it's not even a really what you call a single-family child-generating home, if you will. But so that change is also beginning to occur. So we're seeing lower yields from that housing, and we're seeing it quickly. Again, 33 active subdivisions still in Lewisville. We've got 1,100 single-family lots, and we've got groundwork underway. So they're still moving dirt. There's still optimism out there to build. But in Lewisville ISD, the opportunities are changing. So it's just going to look different. Now we've got, there's about 5 or 6 of these. I'm going to go through these pretty quick and hit on a few things. Castle Hills at Windhaven, that of course still has just 17 occupied homes. No students at the time that we geocoded. So by now there could be a few students. Will be a few students in there. Again, just 17 homes so far. Castle Hills Cottage, you can see they've got a really low yield of 0.1. So that's pretty low, but they've got 40 occupied homes. They're almost built. But again, that's the kind of product we're seeing, and that product doesn't yield a lot of students. Williams Ranch, you do see a pretty good, yield there of almost 1 student per home, but just 15 occupied homes. And so that's not going to bring, it's not going to grow a lot of campuses. Your Vickery neighborhood is what it's probably could look like in 5 years, and when that yield settles in there around 0.5. Winburn, that's a future. Dixon Estates, the first closings are underway, so we'll get a few students there, we hope. Town Lake at Flower Mound, that's a big one. You can see there, though, those are some okay yields. You're seeing 0.85. That sounds really exciting, but again, we only have about 161 homes occupied. They're going to deliver those last phases. They're moving dirt. You can see on all of these, we've got aerials recent as October, so you can see a lot of what's going on. Havenwood, they've got those lots are planned and they're under review. Oak Bridge Crossing. Oak Bridge Crossing is 127 total lots, but they've got 4 homes under construction. First residence will be early 2026, so you might get a few kiddos there out of Oak Bridge next year that kind of enter school. And of course, multifamily is always something we can talk about, but that's also seen a shift. The multifamily that's being built right now in Lewisville is not the kind that's going to yield real high yields, except for we have one in the Mills. Well, we'll get to that. We've got, this mixed-use development, the Silveron Park, that is not going to yield a lot of students. We've got another one here, Leo at Lewisville. Again, not a lot of students being yielded from these projects. First units are going to be available, in the fall of 26, so it's going to be a little bit. But now the standard I don't want to get that wrong. Anyway, this standard, 685 homes. Now they have some market rate, and then they also have some tax rate, some tax credits. So that we'll get some low income, and those will usually yield pretty high. So we might see quite a few students come out of there, but that's all relative right now. Quite a few from an apartment complex might be a 0.25. It's not crazy, but it is better than the 0.1 that we're seeing in a lot of areas. And you can see the yields here. So a yield, the bright red ones are where your highest yield is. The blue is where your lowest yield is. And if you look along like the tollway out there, it's mostly blue. That's the newest stuff too. The blue is your newest apartments as well, and that's where those low yields are. The red are going to either be much older apartments, or in a lot of cases, the red areas are mobile home parks, and we yield pretty high in mobile home parks as well. Let's start talking towards projections and getting to the good news. We're not this slide necessarily. So this slide is, sorry, don't want to. We'll get there maybe. Newcomers and leavers. We started looking at this a few years back. So this is where we have a lot of history in Lewisville. So we look at the student ID that we're provided, and then we look the next year to see if that student ID is still in your district. And you can see this year we jumped up to 4,400 leavers. That means there were 4,400 students that were student IDs last year, but we don't have them this year, and that doesn't include the seniors that graduated. That's all K through 11. Newcomers are students that a student ID we didn't have last year, but we have this year. Those are the 1st through 12th graders that are new to your district. So we had kind of a double whammy. Our newcomers dropped, and that's because this housing market we're not generating right now. And then we had a trend in quite a few losers. This is a trend that's not just happening in Lewisville. This is happening all over the state. And the challenge for us is, how do we generate enough growth? And we're going to talk about this later with these leavers at the elementary level to make up for the students that are leaving in 12th grade. Your kindergarten enrollment that you see here, you guys are capturing about 85% of the kindergarten students that were born 5 years ago. Now that number was well over 90% just a few years before COVID. And since COVID, we've seen that trend go down. I've got what I would say is a fairly optimistic kindergarten forecast being shown here. I've kept you right around 80%. I think we could see it trend down a little bit, actually. We're still trying to figure out where that's going to plateau, but right now I think it's going to stay right there in that 3,500 range. The next year, this is what happened this year. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. We lost 1,545 students. That's the biggest drop that we've seen. I was, hoping it would just be 1,000, which sounds terrible, but that's what we were, and that was with about 1%. So you guys came in about 1% under my forecast. I always wish that you're 1% over my forecast. That's not kind of where I want to be. But when you look at those cohorts at the bottom, so the numbers at the bottom, that's a ratio of how many first graders become second graders, or second graders become third graders. What was really interesting to me is at the end there, you see that elementary where it says 0.991? There, the second to the bottom where it says elementary, that means that your elementary cohort declined. which means that first to second, there were less second graders. Second to third, there were less third graders. That was the first time that cohort has declined in over 10 years in Lewisville ISD. So so what happens there means that your elementaries are not making up for your exiting students. You know, your kindergarten classes declined for 5 straight years. Again, we're looking for that plateau. So when we look at the forecast, next year I'm forecasting a decline of about 900 students. Before I go further, though, I want to show you that chart to the right that says cohort growth. That's what I was talking about. So because you have realized growth, which is the absolute number at the end, and those they've all been negative. But you see the cohort growth, they've all been positive until this year. So what's been happening is even though you're losing 1,000 students just through attrition, right? Just because 12th grade class is 1,000 bigger than kindergarten, you're losing that 1,000, but you had enough growth and enough regeneration that you could still see a positive, in your cohort growth. This year, your cohort growth could not make up for that loss. So we had a negative cohort change. Now, because I'm holding your kindergarten class up next year, I'm optimistic that we could go back to kind of a positive cohort growth. It's not going to go back to a positive enrollment growth until your kindergarten and your 12th grade classes kind of level off, which could be at least 10 years away. So that's why the trend is continuing down. I think that you're going to stay right, could drop down to around 41,000 in 10 years. We have that at the elementary level. And again, this elementary slide here is where you see that big number. You can see that we lost 961 students at elementary year over year. Last year was just 250. So that's a big jump. That's a really big jump there. So we're hoping that has leveled off now. It's a 1-year effect. We've also, we're looking at how things look at your middle schools, and of course high school and overall total. So when I was looking at this and I saw that we came in about 500 students under my forecast, we decided as a team that this year with all of our clients, we're kind of creating what we're calling a high-low scenario, because a lot of things are happening right now. Especially next year, we also have to think about vouchers. Homeschooling has increased. We have over 400,000 homeschoolers, in the state now. We think it's increased over 20,000 or more just in recent years. And that's creating a trend where we're seeing students that are probably leavers. That group of leavers that you have, that 70% of that might still be in the district. We did this for Arlington. We checked it out, and they had a similar trend, and we found that almost 80% of them were still in the district. They just weren't attending schools there. So there are some trends happening that we're trying to understand. So what I've done is I built kind of a high-low overall forecast. What your low forecast represents is a continued decline at kindergarten for a few more years, and then these yields not rebounding. That's what that low forecast is. So you can see next year, that's about a 600, 700 student drop off from where I'm at now. Now the flip side of that, and all I did for the high forecast, the only thing I did is I only changed 4 years of kindergarten. If the next 4 years of kindergarten stay at 85%, that's all I changed, because that's how much it'll impact going forward. Then you can see how much impact that could have on your enrollment. That's just capturing a few of those groups there, because once you get the students, like I said, you've never had a negative trend before. So once they come to Lewisville, we've had high cohorts. It's just these recent years where this has been happening. So again, your housing slowed. That's not going to change, I don't think. They might pick up pace from time to time just because some of that product can be built faster than some of the other products. But I think you can expect to see the continued decline in housing inventory is going to drop. Large exiting classes, and they're going to exceed incoming classes for quite some time. And that's really what's going to happen. I talk kind of fast, but sometimes. But always happy for questions.
Are there any comments or questions? Ms. Lasan?
Thank you for being here, Mr. Gardner, and for your, I was going to call it doom and gloom, but presentation, maybe not, I don't know. One thing that I guess is just so interesting, and I think it just, everybody kind of It's just, is the fact that we know, right, that we have a lot of people that are still moving to Texas. Is that correct? We're just really not seeing any growth in our population in Lewisville ISD because, would you say it's because it's not economically feasible for new families to buy homes in Lewisville ISD, would you say?
No, not necessarily. I think there's some affordability still in Lewisville, as you know, in parts of, if Flower Mound's going to be more expensive, of course, but there's pockets there where, there's homes. I know my daughter's street that they bought on. Of course, they bought thinking they were going to go to one elementary school, and I informed them that school closed. She wasn't real happy with me, but she's going to love the school that she's going to.
Yes, she will.
Which is great.
Yes.
She knows that. But their street has a 2-year-old, a 3. They've got some young children right there around them, and I think, and even then you get over the east side, the Colony, there's some affordability over there as well. I think what's happening is we're seeing a lot of apartment movement, and that mobile population there, where we've always had some traditionally high yields, we're losing some students there. We don't know if they're going to apartments maybe somewhere else. They kind of chasing rent a little bit. But I do think your Flower Mound area is not going to turn over very fast. It's going to take a long time for that regeneration. It's the same thing that we've seen in Barrow or in Southlake or in some areas like that where that price point just doesn't turn over very quickly. But I think we have some affordability here.
Well, and that's true, and that's good to hear because we are. The state is still growing very quickly, right?
I think we're the fastest growing population.
Because at one point I had heard Denton County was up there as well. So it's just interesting and somewhat frustrating for us, I guess, as board members, to know that that's going on in the state, and yet, looking at these numbers, it's unfortunate, but it's going to mean more change in the future, I guess. So
2 years in a row, EA posted only about 13,000 new students statewide.
Is that right?
2 years in a row in the fastest growing state in the country.
That's just so interesting to me. I don't
and
really
it is
understand
interesting,
it.
but that's what I think school choice is doing. I think next year we saw that even with charter schools. Charter schools grew by 15,000 last year, and they're part of TEA's data. So that would mean brick and mortar school districts lost about 1,000 students last year. Now, many school districts now have virtual programs. Virtual programs grew tremendously last year as well. So even the students that we're not seeing them always at the campus, but we are seeing it at least staying through those programs. So we are seeing some of that. And my colleague, Bob Templeton, has been telling people that he thinks overall state school district enrollment will likely decline 20,000 or more next year. So we'll actually see that flip of that 20,000.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Taylor.
On your key takeaway slide, am I reading that correctly that over 5 years we declined by 3,000, but we declined half of that in the one school year? Yes, the key takeaway or slide.
Yes, but I just wanted to show you.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You can see the numbers there. Last year, that drop of 1545 compared to what you saw the four previous years there.
And then the note you made about virtual learning, how that's growing, it sounded like. So I guess thinking future, opportunities to be competitive in reaching students is how I view it. So.
I would still say there's none other school district where you can be one of the top 3 out of the 4 bands in the state of Texas.
Boom. Yeah, there you go. That's it.
That doesn't happen at a charter school, and that doesn't happen at our districts that are surrounding us. So I would say that about Lewisville ISD in our great bands. I would also say I know that this report certainly was done prior to our action tonight with Mill Street Elementary, and I would be very curious what those projections look like with the new configuration of where those students are going to go. And I know that you're going to provide that to Mr. Kaj.
Yeah, we're going to work on that, or our team will work on it first, because there's a lot of manual movement there for us. I can't automate that because of some of the movement. So I'm going to build that, and then I'll get with Mr. Kosh and make sure that I picked everything up, and then we'll have it for you for sure at the next report.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for coming out, and thank you for your daughter moving here.
Yeah, well,
we're excited. We're excited to have her as part of our extended LISD family.
Well, I texted Jeffrey too when the water polo team was up there, because my son-in-law played water polo in college in California and coaches water polo now over in Dallas. I mean, with a club team, and so now, he's excited.
Another little something else we do here in LISD. Right. I appreciate it. You're like a walking billboard for us, and I appreciate that.
I actually, believe it or not, I probably am. So yeah, it's good. Hope you guys have a nice holiday.
Thank you, Rocky. Next is the school improvement plan update, the target improvement plans. Ms. Litchfield.
Good evening, President Prosnick, Dr. Rapp, and Board. We're here to bring you part 2 of our school improvement presentation. There's going to be some slides here that we've talked about before, so just a quick reminder for our LISD school ratings for this year. 82% of LISD schools had an acceptable state rating. 7 campuses improved by a letter grade. We had 48 campuses maintain the same letter grade. 7 campuses decreased letter grades, and we had 28 campuses that had an increase in their overall score from 24 to 25. We've brought you in the prior school improvement updates, we talked about our Year 2 and our Year 3 schools, and tonight we're going to talk about our Year 1 schools. And so they have to write a targeted improvement plan instead of a turnaround plan, and then have an ESF diagnostic and a FLIPS, which is principal coaching, and we're going to go into that just a little bit farther. This school year, we have 4 campuses that are writing targeted improvement plans. They are Rockbrook, Huffines, Lakeview, and LHS. And so we're going to go over the timeline plans, who and what's involved, what we identified as root causes, and steps to take with our school support this time. Of course, TEA has guidelines and expectations, and they are a little different than our guidelines and expectations for our turnaround plans. And so the first thing is when you're a Year 1, you have to participate in FLIPS, which is the Foundation Leadership Instructional Practice System. And basically Region 11 comes and works with our principals and school leadership and looks at Level 1 of Effective Schools Framework and just make sure that we have all of our practices and systems in place with that. And it's 4 meetings, about 3 hours for each one on the campuses, and so our principals this year will participate in FLIPS. And then they also get to participate in a targeted ESF diagnostic, and the ESF diagnostic, Region 11, actually comes to campuses, and we put in all of our information, and this year we got the pleasure of getting to put it in twice because we weren't quite told what we needed to do the first time. So kudos to those principals and chiefs out there because it took a lot of work to get everything in that we needed to have in. But basically, they just look at our campus systems and areas to strengthen for our student outcomes and consideration of just systemic upgrades with this. And so it also provides data trends that's used for the superintendent consultation as we just talked through with our TEA representative and our Region 11 people. Last time I did talk to you about the Learning for Impact PLC. I'm happy to say that we actually started that today. We had all of our TAP principals there, our TIP principals, and our LIP principals that are the local improvement plans, and we'll talk about that at the very end of the presentation. But I had a great first kickoff, and so it was fun to see everybody, and I can't wait to get more in that learning part. So it's really great. TEA timeline for our TIPs are, of course, we all went to training on the 28th. And then from September to October, they had their ESF diagnostic. for the campuses that participated in that. And then we have our initial tip submission before the board tonight. And so it's a little different than our turnaround plans. Our turnaround plans we brought to y'all, and then you voted on them, and then we submit them. Our tip plans, we actually are giving you a preview tonight, and then they will go into the state, and we'll get information back, and then we'll bring them back in March for board approval. And so they are a little bit different. And then, of course, the FLIPS coaching will be from November through May of this year. And so now I'm going to turn it over to our school chiefs and everything, and we're going to talk about the individual plans for each campus, and then we'll present all 4 plans, and then at the end we'll take questions. And I know you'll probably want to hear from the principals and the chiefs and everybody that's out here, so I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Stephanie Lawson to talk about Rockbrook.
Good evening, board. I'm here to talk to you about Rockbrook Elementary this evening. So the timeline for Rockbrook is as follows. On September 30th, we had our ESF pre-Zoom visit with the principal, school chief, and Region 11 support, where they came and walked the campus and gave us great feedback. October 7th, we had our ESF diagnostic, campus walks. October 15th, we had our post-Zoom visit. October 28th, Dr. Guy hosted a community meeting at his campus. On November 10th, we're presenting to you all, and then we will have our TEA and Region 11 site visit on November 18th. So they'll come and visit the campus for 3 hours, and we will walk classrooms, and then we will submit our plan on November 21st. So this is our district support. Of course, we have our chief of school, Lori Litchfield, myself, our wonderful learning and teaching department, Karen Spalding, Trish Kuckler, and then our facilitators who support the campus, Tabby Sebrin and Jennifer Upchurch. Rockbrook is a 4-day school, so they have support 4 days out of the week. And then our campus support, Dr. Guy, our principal, his assistant principals, Kristen House, Cynthia Matthew, Dr. Carrie Motz, who's here with him tonight. And then his new instructional coach, Siobhan Little, Ms. Durker, his language acquisition specialist, Michelle Murphy, his dyslexia interventionist, and then Delina Johnston, GT facilitator. So this is Rockbrook STAR data from 2023 and 23-24 to 24-25. You'll see that Rockbrook was rated overall a D, 23-24. They had great growth in Domain 3 of closing the gaps. They had a little bit of drop in Domains 1 and 2, but a significant drop in Domain 3 last year, which brought their rating down to a 59. So the root causes for Rockbrook that we have indicated, number 1 is staff quality. There's a high number of instructional staff at Rockbrook who are alternatively certified, which has resulted in various levels of instruction. Dr. Guy has done a great job of providing support to his staff in that way. To provide capacity for them. At the same time, there have been challenges with the master schedule, so they've had to be very innovative in how they provide professional learning communities for their staff, and they're able to do that twice a week, 1 day for reading and 1 day for math. Then with student learning, reading instruction was strengthened last year through consistent implementation of research-based strategies, but math instruction has not yet reached those levels. And then they've also had limited use of manipulatives and availability of resources, specifically designed to guide small group and targeted intervention. So the campus has done a lot of work with their teachers on that. Then school processes and programs. There are students who lack emotional and social skills necessary to engage appropriately with peers and adults, and they require explicit instruction with replacement behaviors. And so this has been an area of growth for the campus to provide consistent structures for teaching and reinforcing these skills to hopefully lessen behavior referrals. So the levers that Rockbrook is working on this year, lever 1, which is strong school leadership and planning, and they are focusing on 1.3 leadership This is the lever that really encompasses everything. Within that, they are working on consistently monitoring and implementing outcomes by the administrators, which includes prioritizing, creating clear campus milestones and metrics, monitoring implementation, holding their task owners and teachers accountable for evaluation, and then regularly using data and other evidence to track their progress. And then lever 5, which is effective instruction, and they are focusing on building teacher capacity through observation and feedback. And so the teachers are using, or the campus leaders are using tools such as Trend to conduct observations and track progress over time. And they are ensuring that they are providing consistent feedback to their teachers after those observations. Some of the action steps that we've put in place this year: the weekly PLC meetings, again, those are twice a week. Professional learning focused on Tier 1 instruction. The teachers are analyzing data weekly. Then we've implemented the math HQIM. That was implemented in October, and that was presented with our TAP plans. Common formative assessments, and then the newly hired math instructional coach to support the campus learning in that subject area. And then the FLIPS training will be provided for Dr. Guy.
And some of this is going to be a repeat from some of the information you've heard before, but I want to make sure that we do just include the information for you tonight. So the SAVIS math was our adoption, and we have also implemented with Rockbrook the iReady resource. So that is in progress right now. All of the teachers have been trained, and it is in implementation currently. And so some of the information up there is just sharing with you that it does align with our district philosophy of teaching mathematics, has research-based instructional strategies, and provides considerably more planning and delivery support for teachers so that there's more focus on a rehearsal and not looking for the resources and material or planning for it. And then we will obviously go through the math adoption process for all K-12 this year for other campuses. And the last note on there is just that we're able to support the implementation of that by utilizing the funds from the SBOE that were appropriated for that, what we're calling Bucket 2, but it's an instructional materials allotment that allows us to utilize funds this year to provide the support for campuses like Rockbrook. With RLA, we've said this before, but it bears repeating that we use HMH into Reading Texas, and it has both a comprehensive program and a phonics program. They are currently under review for the HQIM to be considered, and we do believe that they will be named as an eligible candidate by the SBOE. In addition, our team has done a lot of work with curriculum to ensure that teachers are making the connections between the foundational skills, the science of teaching reading, the reading and writing that is supported by the curriculum. And so one of our target considerations was that we didn't want to implement 2 new resources when we have one that's likely going to already be approved. And so math was the focus area for an HQIM change this year. Data systems, of course, iReady reading and math, you've heard quite a bit about tonight. And then we also have unit assessments that we have created aligned to the TEKS in both ELA and math, and the campuses are giving them routinely in order to have checkpoints. We have district CBAs, and we are able to compile those data assessments and work with the principals to analyze that information. And then we do give one district monitored release STAR assessment at the elementary level. It's usually the most recent release, and we're able to data mine that when that is given.
Now Ms. Upshaw will be up here to talk about HUF fines in Lakeview.
Good evening. I'm here to share with you the incredible work that's going on at Huff Hines Middle School. So our Huff Hines timeline is similar. On September 30th, we had a pre-Zoom visit and meeting with our team to discuss the plan and preparing for the plan, actually. On October 15th, that was the deadline for stakeholders regarding the school performance rating. On November 5th, there was a community input meeting at 5 p.m. That was last week. And that was actually a virtual opportunity that was offered as a second opportunity to get more input from parents. So we had some good participation with that. Targeted improvement plan was shared with the board. That is tonight. And then our initial tip submission will be November 20th. Our district support, we're grateful to have the support of Lori Litchfield, our Chief of Schools, Adrian Gall, and Chief of Learning and Teaching, Karen Seeley and her team, Melanie Miller with the Math Department, Alexis Snyder with Math, Sean Hood with the Secondary Literacy and Language, Holly Reynolds, Secondary ELR Facilitator, and we've also been working closely with Danielle Oakley and her team with Secondary ESL Coordinator, and Rhonda Gobby has been assisting as well. At the campus level, Dr. Willie is the principal at Huffines Middle School, and his campus team includes Jennifer Smith, assistant principal, Michael Castillo, assistant principal, Scott Slominski, who's an assistant principal, and then Simone Milton, who's an ESL facilitator. So when we look at our STAR data for Huffines, you can see there were just some very slight dips that have us where we are today. Our closing the gaps is probably our largest gap in the years, and really I think the focus at that time, we were focused on a specific group of students, and then that shift changed as the population and the student demographics changed at the school as well. The root causes that we've identified include student learning. We know that the campus instructional processes are not fully embedded with fidelity, which has led to some uneven curriculum alignment, inconsistency in clarity of learning expectations, and use of varied instructions to drive instruction. And then also family and community engagement. We also know that there are some challenges with stability and communication, as well as access to resources that support consistent academic and emotional growth. We've selected lever 4, specifically high-quality instructional materials and assessment and formative assessments as a focus at Huffines Middle Schools. We want teachers to have access to and high-quality instructional materials that fully cover state standards and that is aligned with research-based instructional strategies to meet the needs of all students. Our campus at Huffines is clearly outlining the purpose of each assessment and when it's administered, how the results will be used to support learning. And so again, we're grateful for our guidance from learning and teaching as well as professional learning and how we use that data. And then also, when instructional materials have been adopted and we're in the process of piloting, we're certainly monitoring those closely, creating time for internalization of the protocols as well as teacher planning time and monitoring the rigor through observations. We're also focused on lever 5, effective instruction, data-driven instruction. So this is similar but more specific to what are we doing with the data, how are we applying it, and how are we using it as evidence-based feedback to teachers to inform the instructional process. Also, we are building the capacity of our leaders, including Dr. Willie and his team, and how they look at data and how they participate and lead PLCs, as well as identify trends using trend walks, as well as our One Vision framework and One Vision observation tool to provide feedback as well. These action steps will look similar to you, but some of them are specific to the needs of Huffines, of course. Lesson design with a strong focus on clarity. I am excited to say that at the walks that we have done so far, we've really been able to see the clarity in the classroom. Students are able to tell you what they're learning, but they're also able to show you what they're learning and explain it to you so that we know that they understand and the lesson is clear to them. We're really focused on Tier 1 instruction, again, working with our Learning and Teaching Department as well as our ESL department to make sure that we have time, that teachers are taking time to really look at the lessons that they are designing and making sure that they have made plans for all the students in their classroom and not just filling in boxes on a template. Biweekly PLCs are happening, as well as district PLCs. Those are happening actually this week in our reading and math for grades 6, 7, and 8. And then we'll also, Huffines is one of the schools who has adopted who is piloting rather, the Bluebonnet Math for grades 6, 7, and 8. And we've had some great support with that. Common unit assessments built by our district to make sure that we are working at the grade level and also assessing the grade level, assessing what we teach. And then observations and feedback cycles based on the One Vision framework. Again, we just completed our second round as a group, and so we were able to really see the progress from the first round to the second round, but also give additional feedback to teachers so that they continue to grow and learn as well. If you know Dr. Willie, you know he's a learner, and so he's going to keep that going. And then flips training will be happening soon. We have our coach has reached out to us, and we're setting up a date to get that started.
All right, as Ms. Upshaw shared, we are providing a lot of support. We were already up for adoption for K-12 math, so that was something that was already in progress. But we did take the Bluebonnet Open Education Resource, and we've utilized some of those entitlement funds for Huffines, as well as, Durham Delay. And then Lakeview is a participant that you'll hear about next. And that's just the information that we've provided about that resource. But they are in PLCs about it, and they are receiving a lot of support with the math implementation from Ms. Seeley and Ms. Miller that are on campuses quite frequently to check on the implementation and to provide coaching and support. RLA is Study Sync. We are not anticipating that the SBOE is going to be ready for an RLA RLA product for a few years, but we feel really good about what we have in place, and we also have done a considerable amount of work, Mr. Hood and his team, around the curriculum, aligning the reading, the writing, the ECRs, and making the connections for our students and making it to be as rigorous as possible and as aligned to the TEKS as possible.
Okay, and then I'm going to share with you the work that's going on at Lakeview Middle School as well. So a similar timeline with a couple of differences. Lakeview did have a diagnostic campus visit on October 7th of this school year, and so we walked several classrooms and received a report back from our administrator from Region 11. We actually were able to meet with her in person because we were there for training, and so we use some of the feedback from the diagnostic visit to include in the plan. We also have a public meeting scheduled for November 12th. Actually, that is our community and parent meeting, which is Wednesday of this week in the evening. And we're hoping to have our newly install some of our PTA officers as well as community and parents come out to that to give input. And then November 10th, we're here tonight, and the plan will be submitted on November 21st. District support, again, we have our fabulous learning and teaching team, Ms. Gall, Ms. Seeley, Melanie Miller. At Lakeview, we have Lori Mao, which is our secondary math facilitator, and Sean Hood. And then we were able to use some funds from Title I, and Lakeview took part in that. And so a fourth of an additional secondary ELR facilitator for the campus, Peyton Miller, is paid for through Title I funds. And so that was something unique to Lakeview. And also Danielle Oakley with ESL, and then Ms. Gobby is a big help there as well. And then, of course, Lori Litchfield, who's leading us through this process. Our campus support right now, we have Rhonda Gobby, who's chief of elementary school. We have Dr. Who's filling in as our acting principal at this time, Dr. Ebony Love, assistant principal, Dr. Anthony Dancer, assistant principal. And then we have Jennifer Shelley, who's the ESL facilitator. Peyton Miller, again, is our learning and teaching staff, who's dedicated a fourth of his time to Lakeview. Lori Mao and Rachel Snyder. When we look at our STAR data from the previous years, you can see that there are, again, just some slight dips in some areas. But for Lakeview, there was an increase in the closing the gaps, domain 3. And we do feel like that we can keep that momentum in that area while we work to raise the other areas as well. Our root causes identified at Lakeview. The first one is staff capacity, and I know that says a lot for staff capacity, but I just want to give a little bit of explanation there. There's a declining enrollment at Lakeview, which I'm sure you're aware of, but it does not account for the special education population that has actually increased by nearly 11% since 22-23 school year, and that has significantly affected curriculum continuity and academic stability, as well as some of the sustainability in professional learning, as we have to reassign teachers to classrooms to support students who need them. As a result, many teachers are now managing multiple course preparations because of declining enrollment, as well as creating some singleton classes that has had us have to take a look at how we conduct our PLCs and moving more towards what we're calling communities of practice. So even if there's one 6th grade and one 7th grade and one 8th grade teacher, they can certainly still PLC together and focus on things that are relevant to their subject area. Additionally, a significant portion of the staff are eternally certified, who have limited experience with high needs populations. And so when we say staff capacity, a lot is rolled into that statement. Also for staff learning, or student learning rather, there is a just minimally insufficient growth or minimally sufficient growth among students who are in our EB and 2 or more races groups in comparison with the other populations. And so those are the 2 groups that we have identified as needing an additional support in making sure that we provide the needs, meet their needs. Also, chronic absenteeism had been an issue. We're proud to announce right now we're at about 95.5%, which that's great. So we hope to keep that momentum going as well. So we're focusing on lever for high-quality instructional materials and assessments, particularly 4.1, with a daily use of high-quality instructional materials. And so as we've shared previously, not only are we wanting to make sure that we have the best materials for our students and our teachers, but that our teachers are really taking time to create those lesson plans and make sure that they know what's in the lesson plan, they understand deeply the concepts and the content, as well as they're taking time to make sure they have planned for the different students in their classroom. And then lever 5, particularly 5.2, building teacher capacity through observation and feedback cycles. And so just to share, we did recently walk Lakeview as well as with the ESF visit. And again, we're seeing some great things in the classroom, including opportunities for students to show their work and to be able to plan for their work, so pre-work as well. And again, we just want to make sure that we are using all the things that we have learned over the past year, or including embedding our safe and civil schools look-fors as we walk classrooms, and also building our teachers' capacity in those areas as well. So some action steps at Lakeview include lesson planning and internalization using the One Vision lesson design tool. And again, that came from our ESF visit, just making sure that teachers are not only planning the lesson, but really designing for the students in their classroom. We're also focused on Tier 1 instruction, including scaffolds and EB strategies, and then enrichment strategies as well. A structure, as I mentioned before, to focus on data analysis, Tier 1 and Tier 2 instruction, so thinking ahead and anticipating students' needs, and then implementing the HQIM in math for grades 6 through 8. I've talked about the observation and feedback cycles. Those are ongoing, and we really appreciate that it's not just the campus team, but it is a support from the district who are walking the campuses and giving feedback as well. And then our RLA instruction funded through Title I to provide targeted improvement. And then our FLIPS coach has reached out to us also, and so we're in communication with her about our plan for Lakeview.
All right, and they are utilizing the same instructional materials, and they are receiving the same amount of support and coaching, as well as assistance with the data analysis for the checkpoints.
Okay. And now Mr. Skelton.
Good evening, everyone. I'll go ahead and get started with Lewisville High School. To begin, I would like to just thank you, Board of Trustees, for all of your support in all of this and the measured approach that you've always taken with the accountability system as a whole, and just for all the time that you put in supporting all of our schools, and particularly right now, speaking on behalf of all these folks behind me, all of these campuses. And so I know we all recognize that these principals and these teachers have very, very difficult jobs, but I appreciate how much you support them, and thank you for that. So to begin, Lewisville High School. Okay, here's our looking at our timeline in a nutshell. We had our pre-Zoom visit meeting with our coach at Region 11 is named Angie Timms, and she's been great to work with. She came out and spent one full day at each of our campuses, one at LHS Kilo, Harmon, and the main campus, and we scheduled those through October. We had our ESF post-visit conversation with her, along with Mr. Baker, Ms. Gore, Ms. Flanders, Ms. Litchfield, and myself on October 30th, and then November 5th we had our community meeting hosted at Lewisville High School for the whole triad. It was in the library that evening, and then tonight here we are presenting to you. Okay, district support. I'd like to thank Chief of Schools Lori Litchfield. I'd like to thank Adrian Gall and all of her team for their support, including Karen Seeley, Sean Hood, and Melanie Miller. As far as campus support, across all three campuses, of course, we have our three principals that I just mentioned. At LHS Maine, we have each of our campuses has basically designated one or two assistant principals to really carry this part of what we're doing this year there. At the main campus, it's Associate Principal Monica Story. And at Harmon, it is Assistant Principal Sean Sheehan, and at LHS Kilo, Assistant Principal Dr. Melvin Owens. And then on the right side there, we have other folks involved at the high school level. Our department heads are huge. ELA, Amber Counts, and Math, Janice Hatter. And LHS Harmon, we have ELA, Sarah, I can't read her name, sorry, from here. Ike. And then Math, Barbara Wright. And then LHS Kilo, we have Patricia Jennings and Ms. Mecki. Okay. Additional campus curricular support, we decided to go ahead and add these folks here. They're really district, but they work on the campuses with our teachers. In ELA, we have Holly Reynolds and Holly DeMond, LISD instructional facilitators. We have Deb Rivera and Holly Schnitzis, ESL liaisons, and in math, we have Lori Mal, math facilitator. Okay, looking at our data over the past 3 years, I show you this for two main reasons. One is just to show that we've been really close. We've been really close in a lot of areas. While we do have targeted actions planned for all of the domains, really domain 3, closing the gaps, is the one that we have the most heavy lifting to do, and that encompasses pieces of CCMR, graduation, TELPAS, also working with our special groups. Dr. Taylor, like to your point earlier tonight, working with our emerging bilinguals in all of our groups, and so that's definitely the area that we have the most ground to cover. Okay, looking at our root causes, how did we get here? We really boiled it down to three main categories. First of all, and it's really the lack of formalized structures in these areas. So if we look at research-based instructional strategies and really looking at our instructional walkthroughs through those lenses, are we looking for rigor and making sure that we're on grade level in ELA and that the texts are complex and like I said, on grade level? In math, are we conceptualizing the learning? And are we looking for that and then holding people accountable for that? And so those are the things research-based strategy-wise that we need to focus on going forward. Data-driven instruction. This shows, up to this point, really a unified, formalized plan for letting data drive our instruction, and that includes really two main things. The first bullet is our data systems and processes not being fully established to support regular learning. So, for us, and I'll get to this in the next slide, it's really more about across the triad, just all of us doing the same thing. Are we using the same common assessments? and so that was one of the keys, was getting those. We need to get those in place. And then the second bullet under data-driven instruction is, are we then meeting in PLCs, analyzing that data and learning from it, and then learning from each other and what worked and what didn't, and then putting that into practice on the next learning cycle. So that data-driven instruction is really going to be key for us going forward. And then also parent-family engagement. We think that's foundational to everything, and it's so important that we wanted to make it one of our root causes. And we need to find ways to reach our families and to communicate at a higher level so that they understand what we need and how they can support us at home. If we look at our levers, high-quality instructional materials and assessments, this is really about assessments for us, kind of going back to the root cause. And so that's really what we're working on right now. I'd like to thank Sean Hood and ELA and Melanie Miller for all the work they're doing to help us with that. We have already implemented CBAs across English 1 and 2 and algebra. We're working on unit tests that we can all use and across all 3 schools implement those for our students. And then lever 5.3, data-driven instruction, and that's to target that root cause, and making sure that we are meeting that need and doing all the things that I just said that we needed to do. Okay, looking at our action steps, pretty much the same that you've heard from some of the other presentations tonight. We are doing the flips training with our principals, and so just as an FYI, I went in and added in. I thought I could sneak it in, but I don't think I could edit the document while I was sitting over there. So, but we are doing flips training with our 3 principals, and then a couple of those that I haven't talked about yet. Targeted interventions are really tutoring, and we use HB 1416 for that, but we also are layering on top of that, like, for example, a 3-4 week boot camp leading up to STAR to help some of our retesters get prepared for that maybe aren't in the class right now, but also students that we know need it that are currently in the class. And so that's something that we're working on, one of our targeted interventions. Again, regular collaboration with our district curriculum facilitators is going to be key. Those PLC structures, we've implemented them now across the triad. That's going to be a really important piece for us going forward. And I think those are the main things that I haven't talked about. Okay, unique to high school, as we know, I wanted to provide you some CCMR updates for the triad. And, condensing some of this just into my mind over the past several weeks as I've, prepared to talk to you, but also prepared to support them. All the great things that we've done over the past 3 or 4 years across the district in CCMR, those are formalized, structured processes that we've been supported in. And I have to give a lot of the credit to Adrian Gall, to Jason Cooper. Now Dr. Petrunin is helping us with that. It's really about taking what we learned from that and applying it to our academic and instructional program. Okay, so, but on that note, we've seen incredible growth at Lewisville High School in the past 2 years, from 43% CCMR to 66% this year, or for 2025 is what came in. And so great job to these guys and to their teachers and staff. That's also, really important that I also thank our counselors. Jill Adams is a part of all those meetings. Our counselors, when I think about CCMR, it's not about all kids, it's about each kid. CCMR is such an individualized endeavor. And so they're a huge, huge piece of that, and I should have mentioned them as one of our key groups in working with our kids and helping us with this goal. Things that we've learned over the past, the second bullet, alignment of all campus-based CTE pathways, that really, before we had these structures in place, we might lose a teacher who was certified in a certain area, and then we weren't able to find that certification with the person that we replaced them with, and then we would lose a pathway. Those are the things and that's not a Lewisville High School thing. That was an LISD high school thing. So now we have processes in place to keep that from happening in the future. And so, making sure that all of our programs are aligned, and then at the same time trying to increase the enrollment of our students at our tech campuses and in dual credit courses. And, and this goes to a point I think Dr. Rapp was making about providing students with multiple options for CCMR so that they don't feel pigeonholed, and we're not pigeonholing them into just one, or two. And we really think that we can I think we all believe in the importance of CCMR. It's just making sure that we do it in a way that's best for kids. Okay, and then also we've, as you know, we've implemented administrations of TSI, PSAT, and SAT during the school day. TSI, as you know, is administered to students in English 3 and Algebra 2. SAT is administered during the school day to all seniors, and then PSAT is given to all of our sophomores during the school day. One other thing, I'm pretty sure you're aware, but PSAT is also given during the school day as an option for all of our juniors, and I believe this year at the main campus we have about 500 kids taking that. And just a final bullet on CCMR, as you know, it changes. And so not only do the percentages change from year to year that we're expected to reach, but also the different tests. You know, one year this test will help you get a CCMR certification, but then that test is no longer recognized, so you have to change, you know, your instructional programming to meet the new test. Dr. Petrunen's been very helpful with that. And so we have to stay ahead of the curve. We have to be informed about that, and then make sure that we're adjusting our instructional program and our CTE pathways to meet those needs. And so a lot of that has to do, the third bullet there is alignment of high school offerings through to strategic master schedule planning, and that's something that we have to, and we've been working on together, is, you know, making sure that all of our pathways flow evenly across the triad, and that kids can have all those pathways to become in CCMR. And then also, just in the last bullet there, working with local colleges in Region 11 regarding college prep options. There's currently no TEA-approved college prep math course, and so that was a key for us the last 2-3 years, is getting our CCMR up, and we're going to have to find a new way to keep increasing our percentages. Thank you.
Thank you to Mr. Skelton, Ms. Upshaw, and Ms. Lawson taking us through our TIP plans. We have one last thing, our local improvement plans. And really quickly, I'd just like to say thank you to Ms. Garrett for working on these with us. She kind of took lead on this process for us. As you can tell, we've been a little busy with our turnaround plans and our TIP plans, and so I just want to thank her for that. We do have some local improvement plans. When we called them LIP plans, I think last year, Dr. Rapp was like, do you not have another name? But then they're actually called that now, so we're kind of laughing that they are called the LIP plans. So just a quick update on that. We do have 4 campuses that have Ds this year that have a LIP plan due to the D rating, which is Central, Peters Colony, Southridge, and Hedrick. And then we have our LIP plans that are in because of targeted support and improvement. And just a quick reminder about that, that's a specific student group consistently underperforming. And so that's Lakeland, Lewisville, and Kamey. And then our additional targeted support campuses, that's one or more student groups are performing as lowest schools that are identified in the comprehensive support, and even if the rest of the schools doing well. And so we have Independence, Indian Creek, Parkway, and Griffin. And so we do have those local improvement plans being worked on, and we can get y'all access to them if you'd like to see them. But before I turn it over for questions, just want to thank our principals for all the hard work that they're doing at our campuses, our school chiefs, learning and teaching, Sarah with accountability, professional learning with Kelly Roden. It does completely take a village to get all of this done, and so just be remiss in not thanking them and all their hard work. So now we're open to questions.
Thank you, Ms. Litchfield. Dr. Taylor.
Thank you for the presentation of all of the plans. I saw in multiple, I didn't write the notes, that there were either research-based instructional strategies or the underlying structure was missing as a reason for some of the accountability scores. I guess I was wondering, how did that happen? Does my question make sense? I don't know who it's supposed to go to either. So,
is there a specific?
Lewisville was the last one that had that, but I believe there were other schools as well.
Yes, so I can kind of speak to some of that, but principals could probably as well. But when it comes to the root cause being an identifier, that is a common one we see, because consistently students need good teaching every single day. And so there are waves, especially whether it's associates or alt certs or unfamiliar with the content in which they're teaching, but we really had to up the rigor for how students learn today and what is considered a best practice to engage them, and to also consider what's the teaching asking of a student, because sometimes there is conflict between what is being taught to the rigor and what the demands and how it is even tested. So a focus on that has been something that we have brought back attention to.
And then my other question was on parent engagement, seeing that as an issue as well. Have we identified some strategies to deal with that?
So, one of the things that we've talked about at the high school level is the need to inform all of our feeder pattern campuses about high school. And so just as recently as last week, we are going to start sending all of our basically the newsletters that Mr. Baker sends out that include all the great information about all the programs that they have, but also just high school information that families need. We'll start going out across the feeder pattern. So that's one idea. But we're on the learning curve with that. I think that we need to look at other schools that have higher parental engagement and just ask them what's working for them and then try to implement that. And so we're on the learning curve to be sure. I think that though that teaching our incoming students about what high school is about is so important. Even after being a high school principal for several years, and I had my daughter come in as a freshman, it was overwhelming to me, and I was the principal at the school. So there's so much to learn, and that's an area that we need to focus on for sure.
And this may be, well, I guess it's two-part question. This may be for you, Dr. Rapp, with further research needed. With respect to the triad, is there a way to figure out, and I don't know the answers to these because, I'm newer to the board, would be newer to the district after I believe the triad was already set up. So all I've known is the triad. I wonder what the effect of the open transfer policy has been on the accountability scores for the triad, and I guess that'd be back to when it was first implemented and sort of what the scores look like if there was a trend. And then your favorite thing that I like to talk about, busing between the three campuses and just trying to understand if there's a way, and that's probably related, what has been the effect on academic achievement, because I tend to believe, and I don't have any research on this, that if students are struggling from an academic growth and success standpoint, that putting those students on buses between multiple campuses cannot be good. And so I always bring that up just because I don't understand. And I would just love to know the effect of that. And then because parents recently have been raising this issue about unwinding the triad or what that would look like, not that that can happen, my understanding was that there was some cost associated with it, and maybe it will be good for the community to share that information. And I will also add my own personal opinion as a parent. The triad is set up the way that it's set up. And I don't know that you can unwind it. I don't even know if, that's an option. But I always thought personally that students traveling that I would rather see teachers traveling between campuses and getting a stipend or whatever that is than the students on buses every day from this class to that class or whatever. And it's the only school like that. It's also the only school struggling with, the accountability scores. And I get it, the population is different, but that's just me on my soapbox as a LHS parent.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Ms. Sells.
Just a couple of questions. Can we extract the data? I would like to see the data for the Harmon students versus the Kilo students. Is that possible? Okay. I'd like to see, and I know that their student IDs are assigned to certain campuses, so I would really like to see it as broken down by even the three campuses, and let's see what those are. I know that only 3 of the 4 community meetings have happened. Can you all share what the attendance was on the 3 out of the 4 so far? And I wish I could be a fly on the wall on the 12th, but I already have another commitment. But have we had attendance, or is it? And can you share a little bit about the attendance and the engagement?
And the feedback.
That's for the principals. Come up to the mic. You have to come up to the mic so that the people at home can see you, Mr. Baker.
About 25 people. Some of those were staff members with children. But the engagement was exceptional. It was a presentation, but I think everyone would agree that it really turned out to be more of a discussion with questions and things where we actually discussed the reasons and concerns and things like that. It was a small number, but it was a good group.
Everybody gets to talk. Mr. Willie.
Thank you. We had two separate meetings. I held one just before the Harvest Festival, which is one of our bigger fall festivals. That meeting had about 10 to 12 families, parents there, and then I held a virtual one last week, and we had 3 families on the virtual call. And so I would echo what Mr. Baker just shared about it being more of a discussion. I think a lot of families were very eager to hear more details about the accountability rating, and then also getting an opportunity to hear the steps and the actions that we're moving forward. What was really neat to see in our parents is just an eagerness to learn more. They wanted to hear more about where their students were struggling and how they could help and support and partner with the school. So that was very encouraging.
Thank you. Dr. Guy?
Good evening. I concur. We held our meeting on October 28th. We probably started with about 20 parents, but by the end of the meeting, we probably had over 50. It was before a choir event, so it was strategically planned, and the engagement was extremely high. Ms. Lawson was there. It took a little bit of prompting, but they asked great questions. They asked questions like, did we have all the resources we needed for improvement? They asked, how could they help? What type of opportunities were we providing during the day for additional support? And I was really pleased to be able to answer specifically all of the questions they had. And really, at the end, they really affirmed the great experiences that their kids were having at Rockbrook. So,
thank you very much.
I just want to encourage y'all, and that's great. I'm glad that at least that number turned out. Just wanted to continue to encourage you to reach out. It's kind of that 80-20 rule. And to continue to reach out. I know that a lot of us here on this board have served in the PTA realm, and we understand that you're going to have the same people engaged, but it's the people that aren't being engaged. And we've got to figure out how to reach the parents, because, as you know, Dr. Guy, and even with working with the Lunch with the Leader there on your campus, that sometimes if we can reach the home and make a change there, as hard as it is, and sometimes that's beyond our control, there's where we're going to see change. And if we can't do that, then we have got to figure out how to get more mentors into these schools, because there isn't a one of us up here that have had a mentee that mentee did not end up being successful and graduate. And that is the power of an adult caring, because they don't get it at home. And I'm not going to blame a parent, because I will tell you that one of my mentees' moms, and she was a single mom, was just trying to figure out how to pay the rent and put food on the table. But when I showed up at school, which her mom never did, never at an event that I went to for that child, because she was working. She worked a night shift, and there was never an event she was there. But when I showed up, you know what? She had to answer to me. Because if you're benched, why are you benched? And so I don't know what we've got to do, but I'll do whatever I can do to help to get more mentors in these schools, because family engagement is key, but we've got to be real. It may just not happen. Not of any fault of anybody's. And so just let us know. We support you, and we love your campuses, and we love your kiddos and your staff. And we're not here to see anybody fail. We're here to succeed. And we want to be a part of that. So that's it.
Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I want to commend our principals and campus leaders and our chiefs. For those of you that don't know, an ESF diagnostic is not an easy process. It is a heavy lift. There are artifacts that have to be submitted ahead of time. I know this because I serve as an ESF facilitator, so I've done this in schools. There are the pre-visit conversation, the campus visit, the post-visit. A lot of times teachers think it's TEA coming in to check up on them in their classrooms. There's a lot of anxiety around that visit. It's a very vulnerable process. You're allowing this person who doesn't have relationships with teachers or students into your building to point out what might not be working. And then you throw on top of that all of the shifts and expectations around the process this year. And even as a facilitator, we've been thrown some shifts. I just got my report submitted the other day because I finally received a piece that I needed from TEA. Anyway, so all that to say, thank you for walking through that process and being vulnerable and identifying those areas of growth. It takes a lot to be able to dig into those soft spots. Your question about parent engagement made me think back to this ESF process, because you noticed with just about every other root cause, whether it's instruction, you have research-based instructional strategies, which is a particular intervention that's provided by the state. That's a particular term that's wrapped around some frameworks from the state. For lesson internalization, there's a particular protocol that the state recommends. For materials, you have specific materials that the state has said are there for that. There is not an intervention identified for parental engagement. That's not something that, if you define that as a root cause, that TEA has a ready-made solution for. So I appreciate your vulnerability, Mr. Skelton, in telling us that you're on this learning curve, because there's not a lot that the state has said works. And we can question whether some of their other interventions work or not. I mean, that's a whole other conversation. But they haven't even determined something that we can put into place for that root cause. So I love the learner mindset of looking at what's working. And I love, Dr. Guy, that you mentioned, having something, and Mr. Willie, you mentioned this too, Dr. Willie, my apologies, about having some of these events before you have other events, right? You have a ready-made audience. So learning those pieces from our campuses that are doing it well, I think that's really the only choice that we have, is to be learners in that process. And then, just because I was bouncing again, and Ms. Lasan had to put her hand and be like, stop bouncing. Somebody asked me about Lewisville High School and their D rating. I kind of made a joke, and I said, don't you worry, we got CCMR coming. We've been working on this for a couple of years. It's going to hit the ratings, and we're going to see that number go up. I am still worried about college prep. We're going to have to get over that hump, but I am confident that we're going to see an impact in all of the work that has been done in both Domain 1 and Domain 3. So thank you all for your very, very hard work that you do day in and day out, and the vulnerability that you have being in here and listening to us dig deep into what's happening on your campuses.
Thank you. I guess I want to tell you that you do not do this work alone, and that we stand with you in any ways to support you and to support your campuses and to support your kids. I'm very confident in the leaders that we have on the campuses, and that they will get this work done, and they will get this work done well. And I look forward to the update in March when we can see some of the fruits of your labor. This, as I said earlier, this doesn't flip on a dime, but we will see the inch-by-inch progress when we check back in with you all in March. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Next up, it's the academic calendar. Dr. Miller.
Woohoo. All right, we're in the middle of academic calendar. All right, so actions taken, progress we've made since we came to the board in September to talk to you about the progress. The committee has met. We reviewed all. We have so much feedback from previous things to look at. We know the common themes of what people want as priority on the calendar, so use that to help build consensus, interesting consensus that was built this year. We have 3 options to consider. So the board or the committee really wanted us to have a Wednesday start date. So, and that was like one of their top priorities. So, you know, we used to always have Wednesday, right? Well, if you start on a Tuesday like we did this year, that gives you a little more flexibility for staff, for work time, for an early release time where then staff can work because you have an extra day in minutes. It's all about the minutes, right? So when you take the Tuesday and you now start on a Wednesday, you're losing 435 minutes that you would have got. So we did some calendar options with Wednesday because that's really what they wanted, but I also threw in a Tuesday to show what the difference is just in case. It really impacts staff more than families. Of course, they really wanted to be intentional about the winter break and having that semester end before that. Winter break, the length of winter break was really important. Of course, all of Thanksgiving break is important. Spring break lands odd. You can choose to go a little early or you can choose to go late. The 9-week split is even either way you choose, so it's going to be a little off whatever spring break. So we looked at that and then really limiting the student half days as much as possible. Just a reminder that the whole game of academic calendar is based on minutes. How many minutes you have is how you can structure your calendar. So Lewisville from last year made the commitment that we were going to stay at 435 minutes per instructional day. And so that really is how you have to navigate your calendar. Teacher work days do not count as instructional minutes. But professional learning days, you can put in a waiver, and those do count as instructional minutes. And then new this year from the TEA and the student attendance handbook is there are often times when we will have someone hit a pole and the electricity's out on a campus. If it's really, really cold like this morning and that happens and you have to close that campus down, I mean, that didn't happen this morning, but I'm saying if it was really cold like this morning, not that the electricity went out. If it's really cold like this morning and that situation would have happened and you close that campus because of that, that campus now has to use saved up minutes in order to meet that. The calendar is not for the districts, it's for each campus. So when this committee created this calendar, they really had to look at to make sure we have enough additional minutes for not just if bad weather happens, but anything happens, that you have some minutes in order to make up that time. So there are 3 different calendar options that we are proposing that go out to get feedback from our community and staff members. This one is the one that starts on Tuesday, because if you will notice, if you start on a Tuesday, then spring break, there is a half day before spring break. So students, that's the early release for students, but staff can work. And then you also have a break in April. Going from the other calendars, going from March to the end of the year is a very long last 9 weeks. But again, if you start on Wednesday, you're kind of taking that away. So we put that option in there for that. And then every calendar option has a little different things with your October, the first end of the 9 weeks, what that looks like for staff. Some of them are professional learning, some of them are split professional learning and work time. And then election day in November, that is a little different for each calendar as well. For students, they will have off due to us not knowing how many campuses are polling places or not. We want to make sure that security for students is secure. So, but staff, it kind of varies based on how many minutes we have. And then in this calendar, you'll see that spring break was the week before, or a week a little earlier. And then in option B, we are starting on a Wednesday, which means that spring break, we do not have an early release, and we do not have any additional off times in April. This also impacts usually, do you see the Easter holiday is up earlier? So this year, Easter is a little later in April. That was also a concern for the calendar committee, that like this calendar, that you come back 4 days and you're off again. So it was, spring break was just a really lengthy conversation. And then calendar C, you have a little different options for election day. Everyone has off, but you have the same situation for spring break, but we moved it up one, and then there's no time from Easter all the way to the end of the year. We do have in 2 calendars, we have 1 bad weather day, but we have additional minutes to make up for 2 of them. So if something were to happen where we have 2 bad weather days, we do have enough minutes. In the first calendar option, there are actually 2 bad weather days built in with a little extra minutes on there for anything that we don't anticipate knowing ahead of time. So next steps are, if there is any input of any other things to consider before we put these 3 options out for feedback. We plan to put the form out in our newsletters that are coming up at the end of this week, and having those open until Thanksgiving break, and then we would bring the feedback to y'all to consider for in December. With that, I'll take any questions.
Are there any comments or questions? Ms. Lasan?
Okay, so it looks like in each one of these, school is ending on the 21st of May, right? So, and this may be actually for Mr. Kosh, because it's about graduation. So we're second in line for when we get to pick the star, right? Or get dates at the star, correct?
That is correct. Plano, Frisco gets first choice, Lewisville gets second, and then traditionally, last couple of years, Plano is the third school.
Okay, so that weekend, I guess we had a week between graduation and the last day of school this year, right?
That's correct.
I mean, it seemed to work out okay, right? Yes?
Yeah,
I love it. But
anything further than a week, you start getting into travel plans, summer activities. But I think if you talk to the high school principals, that week in between allowed for things to be cleaned up, verified, organized, and ready to go. So that week in between didn't seem to be too big of a problem for the high school administration or the parents at this point.
I didn't hear a whole lot of feedback about it. I mean, I didn't love it, but I don't know. So we would shoot for that weekend after, or are we going to shoot for, like, as far as graduation, are we going to shoot for the weekend of Memorial Day?
Trying to avoid the weekend of Memorial Day because of the restrictions that the STAR puts on all participants there, not just LISD, and then the added cost of overtime for all the public servants that are there to serve in Frisco municipality, it gets pretty expensive. The thing that they've told us that if we land graduation on Memorial Day, then we're significantly limited on the number of tickets per family, and that is unappealing to me.
Yes, I'm sure it is. So we might end up being on a weekday, maybe?
Weekday, if it's maybe our third choice. We've worked out the contract with Craig Martin before he left, and there it seems to be landing on our weekends, our traditional weekends of the Saturday-Sunday combination.
Okay.
Definitely put back in the update for y'all board what the graduation dates were in the contract that you all saw with the STAR, because they do ask you to get those dates. Even though we're second line, we still got to kind of agree on them.
Sure.
Early, but
yeah,
I'll put that back.
Well, with Memorial Day being later, our choices were the weekend, so the 22nd, 23rd, or during that week. So it would happen before Memorial Day because we don't want to interfere. We don't want to. So that's why the calendars end on the 21st.
Ms. Stiles?
I meant to go check and I forgot, so I apologize. Did we have 3 choices the last few years?
We did last year. Typically we had 2. Yeah.
I'm just really afraid this is going to be confusing. And I appreciate the work that the calendar committee did. But it's hard. We want to still do what's best for kids, even in a calendar. And it's hard if you're looking at some of these things for coming back from spring break, but then having an early spring break. But I can bet you I know what week area schools districts are going to choose, probably historically what they've done. And so it's just really confusing to me even, and I've seen this for many years. I just want to make sure that the ledgers and the explanations of the differences go out once again. And I'm hoping that that the 3 choices does not deter people from actually voting. And that's my concern, is that as a research and design, master's degree in that, the options here, given the audience that we're putting it out to for input, I have a feeling I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, it's not going to impact our participation, but I have a feeling it might. So just wanted to put that out there. I just want to make sure that it's very clear. So, okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, I'm always glad that we reach out to our community and get their feedback. There are some neighboring districts that do not. I'm going to piggyback on the calendar and talk about school start time. We are the only district in the area that goes elementary, high school, middle. All of our neighboring districts go elementary, middle, high school. And it is why a lot of our middle school kids don't get home until they're so late that they can't participate in some extra activities after school. And so, Dr. Rapp, I would really like for you to look into seeing what it would take for us to go elementary, middle, then high school. I'd be happy to cite the 9 studies that I found that show that when you have a later high school start, you also have some academic success. You also have behavior success as well in doing that. And that is something that kind of like, if you will, in conjunction with calendar, I would like looked at as a change for next year.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. And definitely members of the board, the school start times order, it was even something that we convened a group about last school year, as it is a constant question that we get. So happy to take a further look into that. Happy to look into anything every year, all the time. The triad comments, that's going to be a little tougher. That structure's not an easy one to change. So that's a much tougher conversation. But what I would like to do is be able to survey staff at middle school and high school to be sure that I'm fully informed of any potential drawbacks or feedback, just so before I bring any recommendations forward, I can know that we've really aired out from the teachers. Obviously, we've heard feedback from departments and things of that nature, but just what the staff input is. And then we would launch something to get feedback soon and ultimately bring that back and have a conversation about that in January.
Ms. Alcatab?
Yeah, I too would like to look into that, and I like that you're going to survey the staff and also some of the parents, because we're hearing, like, for example, the middle school, because the doors open later now, so we have kids standing outside, drop-off times. But I know there's other things that impact, like our crossing guards. For example, at the elementary, if we switched them, how would that look? Are we able to get them staffed? But I would be curious to see it as well, because it is something, hearing from some middle school teachers, that this could be something that we could maybe give back. I don't know. But I would really appreciate seeing some of those survey results, too.
All right, thank you. Next up is our monthly financial report, including the bond report, land sale report, and the monthly investment summary. Mr. Rear.
The monthly financial report in your board book is for the results of September of 2025. I'm going to share some highlights tonight. The first one would be on the budget revenue and expenditure summary. For the month of September, we had total general fund revenues of $47.3 million and total general fund expenditures of $46 million. On the 2023 bond summary, we have interest earnings of $42.3 million. And on the 2024 bond summary, we currently have an available balance of $52.5 million.
Are there any comments or questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Rear. Next up is Board Policy CH Local. It's you again, Mr. Rear.
Thank you. The revision to Board Policy CH Local was discussed at the work session on November 3rd and will be discussed with the Board Policy Committee tomorrow with the intention to bring it back for further discussion at a December meeting.
All right, are there any other comments or questions? I think I made my position kind of clear. Next is the district-wide intruder detection audit report findings. Mr. Garrett.
Good evening to you all. For the month of October, the TEA intruder detection audits were conducted at Arbor Creek Middle School, Central Elementary, Flower Mound High School, Huffines Middle School, Lamar Middle School, Vickery Elementary, McCamey Middle School, and Shadow Ridge Middle School. Any corrective actions have already been completed, and we have received audits for the month of November, and I'll bring those back next month.
Any comments or questions? Thank you so much for the work, Mr. Garrett. Next up is our action items. Consider approval of the Green Centerpiece Masterpiece Strategy 2025. Dr. Rapp.
Madam President, members of the board, you heard a presentation last month. Stacy and I, of course, came from the city of Lewisville to present with Shelley Robinson, and we are always pleased to be a part of this collaborative effort to maximize LISDOLA and LILA and our partnerships as a part of the Green Centerpiece Strategy. The other thing I would thank you for, too, is your commitment to letting our playgrounds serve as part of the Parks Initiative with the City of Lewisville. That's actually different from the Green Centerpiece, but I think it's a great example of collaboration, and we look forward to the Hedrick Playground being built at Hedrick Middle School as a part of our community support. But we're pleased to bring this before you tonight as a partner with that master strategy.
Would someone like to make a motion? Ms. Alcatab.
I move that the board approve the Green Centerpiece Master Strategy 2025.
There's a second. Dr. Barker. Any comments or questions? No, I just want to iterate this is what it looks like when cities and school districts and partner together for the betterment of both of their communities. And I greatly appreciate the presentation last month. With that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? That is unanimous. The vote carries 6-0. Next is consider approval of the agreement for the purchase of attendance credit and delegate contractual authority to the superintendent in accordance with Chapter 49 of the Texas Education Code. Mr. Rare.
Districts identified by TEA as being subject to the provisions of Chapter 49 of the Texas Education Code must declare their intent on the method of addressing the recapture payment that will be due to TEA each year. In our budget, we've included $23.9 million for recapture payment for this fiscal year. The agreement for the purchase of attendance credits, which is in the board book, requires board approval prior to submission to TEA. In addition, to submit the contract, the school board must delegate the authority to obligate the school district under Chapter 49 to the superintendent each year, and the agreement is due to TEA by January 15th of 2026.
Would someone like to make a motion? Ms. Sells.
I move that the board approve the Option 3 agreement for the purchase of attendance credit in accordance with Chapter 49 of the Texas Education Code for the 2025-2026 school year. In addition, for the 2025-2026 school year, the Board of Trustees delegates contractual authority to obligate the school district under Texas Education Code TEC 11.1511C4 to the superintendent solely for the purpose of obligating the district under TEC 48.257 and TEC Chapter 49, subchapters A and D, and the rules adopted by the Commissioner of Education as authorized under TEC 49.006.
Is there a second? Dr. Taylor. Better get your checkbook out, Dr. Rapp. Is there any questions or comments? Dr. Parker.
I just have to say, can you imagine what we could do with that money with these schools that are struggling?
Do you mean money that our taxpayers pay?
Correct. That part. That's all.
That leaves our district and goes elsewhere? It would be quite incredible. With that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? That is unanimous. The vote carries 6-0. Next is consider adoption of the resolution casting the votes of the Lewisville Independent School District for candidates to serve Place 4 and Place 7 of the Board of Directors of the Denton Central Appraisal District. This is actually mine as the chairperson of the committee. I serve on the committee with Ms. Lasan and Dr. Taylor. We brought forward to the at the work session a draft of votes for this position. We are looking to give the majority of our votes to Mr. Hennifer and Ms. Pomacall, who currently serve on that board. Ms. Lasan, Dr. Taylor, do you have anything to add? All right.
Oh, but I'd be glad to make the motion.
I would love it. Ms. Lasan.
I move that the board adopt the presented resolution allocating its 426 votes to the Board of Director candidates for the Denton Central Appraisal District as follows: Mike Hennifer, 212 votes, Ann Pomacall, 212 votes, Jordan Villarreal, 1 vote, Devon English, 1 vote.
There's a second? Dr. Taylor? Any discussion? That I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? And that carries 6-0. Next is to consider adoption of resolution casting the votes of the Lewisville Independent School District for candidates to serve on the Board of Directors of Tarrant Appraisal District. Fun fact, we have a teeny tiny part of Tarrant County. We have such a teeny tiny part that we only get 2 votes in this. But the same methodology applies. Dr. Taylor, do you want to make this motion?
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the board adopt the presented resolution allocating its 2 votes to the Board of Director candidate for Tarrant Appraisal District as follows. Candidate Wendy Burgess to receive all 2 votes.
Put her over the top. Is there a second? Ms. Lasan? All those in favor? Oh, any discussion? Yeah. All those in favor? Vote carries 6-0. And with that, if there is no further business, This meeting is adjourned, and the time is 10:25 p.m. Have a pleasant evening.
I don't know when we came back from closed session. I said, I don't remember when we came.